Our first movie tells the story of a friendship behind prison walls that spans more than 20 years.
Welcome to a special one-shot edition of Middlebrowmadness, an exercise in podcast hubris. My name is Derek Gane.
I am Isabelle Arf. Derek,
Yes.
why are we here today?
Okay, so in the continuity of recording of Middlebrowmadness, this is going to be the first thing that you're going to hear from us since August 2021. We're back.
Been a hot minute.
But we don't want to just go right into the meat of it. We don't want to just shock your system with takes that are too hot and opinions that are too strongly held. We want to ease you, the audience, back into it and give you kind of just a brief life update. Like what the hell we've been doing for the last 25 months. And
yeah, I mean, this is, you kind of mentioned it, that in release continuity, this will be the first thing people are hearing back from our hiatus ? And in recording continuity, we recorded the next one you'll hear first. So we recorded a real episode.
That's right.
And then Derek and I were like, it might be kind of weird to just drop a regular episode like that into the feed. So let's have a little buffer here, a little bonus. What did we do on our 2-year summer vacation kind of thing? Talk about some media that we experienced. We talk a little bit about our own personal lives and why we had such a delay in the actual next episode. But yeah, it just seemed like a good idea. And also, both of us were very busy and did not have time to watch Barry Lyndon and The Deer Hunter on the same day, because that's a lot of stuff happening.
It's 7 hours of misery. Not misery because those are bad movies necessarily, not to spoil the bit, but bummer movies a little bit, but
a little bit.
So so the thing with this is that this is a lot more free form. We don't really have a framework for this. Usually it's intro, overlong bit about some bullshit on the internet. Me trying to get the
To be fair, I do have one of those. We just haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay, I see. Okay. An oasis appears in the desert. It's one of Isabelle's fucking things.
Well, this was you know how a lot of things happened from the last time we recorded to this release.
Yes.
One of the biggest things that we didn't have a chance to talk about that I absolutely would have talked about if we were recording while it happened.
I can't wait.
Is R.I.P. to Rod Dreher's blog in the American Conservative. Shouts out to a real one of the best to ever do it, one of the most insane men to ever be given a wide platform. For people, Derek, how familiar are you with Dreher?
Only a little bit, but I'm willing to learn.
I love learning and I love teaching about a man who I talk about so much that one time I was drunk at a bar talking to someone and my girlfriend was like, "Hey, tell them about that conservative columnist you love." And I did for a half hour. I'm sorry to that person.
Honestly, given the long list of, shall we say, controversial figures that we've discussed in the past, both on mic and off, this guy might not even crack the top 10.
I mean, probably not. I'll say this. He's a deeply evil man.
Sure.
But also he has not a lot of power, especially anymore. And so setting up for people. Rod Dreher is a conservative columnist. He has also written a couple books. I've read all of them and own all of them. I bought them all used because he doesn't deserve $1 of mine. Because like I said, he's a bad person and he has bad opinions and he's wildly transphobic and homophobic and racist. Not a good person. He literally, he went from Catholic to Eastern Orthodox essentially because the Catholic Church wasn't homophobic enough for him. He's a very strange man. But
I just pulled up
unlike so many.
I just pulled up his Wikipedia page, and brother, it looks like he should be in the National.
Yeah, this is one of the things I love about Rod Dreher. One of the many things, because there's a million conservative columnists out there. Most of them, they're not worth reading. They just say the same things over and over. They're insufferable while also having bad opinions. It's just not a fun time. The reason I have read almost everything Rod Dreher has written, at least I've read almost all of his columns for The American Conservative, and I've read his books Live Not by Lies and The Benedict Option. The reason I do this is both because there's something wrong with my brain, and also because Rod Dreher seems miserable. And that is such a contrast with so much conservative writing and opinion pieces, in that so many conservatives seem self-righteously enjoying themselves. Like they are just so satisfied to own the libs that is all they need in life. And they're smug and tedious. Rod Dreher seems like a generally miserable person who is unhappy all the time, he's told a story where he went back to visit his family who were like, he's very urbane and like he went to college and like X, Y, and Z. He's a writer. I think he lives like just outside New York. And his family is much more like blue collar. And he tells a story of he went back home, made his family ratatouille, and they hated it and just like ordered pizza or something.
Oh my God.
Which is tragic shit. Like he is such a sad figure. And he's constantly essentially telling on himself and doing public versions of psychotherapy without realizing he's doing it. One of my favorite examples of that is in one of his later articles, which is essentially about how I believe his great-grandfather was in the KKK. Before that, he talks about how when he was in, I believe it's boarding school, like high school, somewhere around there. I was definitely older, like 18 plus. So maybe it was college. Not super relevant, but two of the boys on the floor, because it was a single-sex school, two of the boys on the floor were gay and were dating. And according to Rod Dreher, everyone on the floor, all the other guys, were jealous that they got to basically live with their partner, whereas like they couldn't have girls over. And Dreher talks about how he, if there wasn't the societal pressure to not be gay, everyone would be gay because everyone wants to fuck their friends. And it's the kind of thing as you're reading it, you're like, Rod, I don't think you realize. It reminds me a lot of when I was a teenager, and in my brain I was like, well, every boy really wants to be a girl. That's just a thing everyone feels. And they just can't. That's just how life is. It was very much the same feeling reading through it. But he got fired from his column at The American Conservative. On some weird circumstances. So apparently, which we found out through this firing, his column, his 6-figure salary was entirely funded by one man named Howard Amundsen Jr., who is an heir to a California banking fortune. He paid Dreher's entire salary, and also, because of this, he was able to enforce an editorial arrangement where Dreher could post directly to the site without any revisions or legal oversight. Which is wild.
That is
like
rarefied patronage.
Yeah, like that is, imagine having that gig. And Rod fucked it up because he was too weird. According to people who like know Amundsen, he began to like not like Dreher after a very special blog post of Dreher's where he talks about circumcision. And I'd like to read the first paragraph of that so people can experience this.
Buckle the fuck up.
I have never given circumcision a single thought other than to consent to my son's circumcision. Europeans think it's weird for American Gentiles to be circumcised, and I think they're right. Then there's an ellipsis. But I remember the one kid we had in my elementary school class, a black boy who had been born at home and who was not circumcised. All us boys wanted to stare at his primitive root wiener when we were at the urinal during recess because it was monstrous.
His what?
His primitive root wiener. Nobody told us that wieners could look like that. The kid didn't know why his penis was so strange looking, and neither did we. 3rd grade, man. That is the opening paragraph of
Wieners.
a delightful article.
Oh my god. Okay.
And apparently,
all right. That didn't go over so well, I imagine.
No. It was apparently the first red flag for Amundsen. And he didn't also like when Rod talked about a gay guy's nose partially rotting off after getting monkeypox. And he talked about like anal sex and rectal bleeding a lot. He also has an entire article, one of my favorite of his articles, where he warns about sissy hypnoporn. Essentially, seemingly acting like he believes that if you watch sissy hypnoporn, it is going to cause you to become trans, and it is a tool made by the devil. And I mean that very literally, because he also has another series of articles where he talks about getting an actual Catholic exorcism, like an official Catholic exorcism on a friend's wife.
Now, I've heard a type of guys. This guy sounds like
this
a one of one.
This is the best type of guy. He's great because he makes all these articles where he just says wild ass things. All of them are clearly about just him, but he thinks they're universal. And he seems to never be happy. He seems like his life sucks. And I just find that so much fun. Honestly.
Maybe it's not my place to say. In fact, it may very well be not my place to say. But I think maybe our friend here would be a little happier if he came out of the closet.
You are not the first person to say that, Derek.
Not an original observation.
I think he's too committed at this point. You know, you live this far in your life. Rod, if you want to come out, I'd be happy for you. I hope you continue to write just fucking insane shit. But I will welcome you with open arms to this community that you have fucked up so bad. So hey, Rod, if you're listening, I literally thought about this is more of a side thing. I thought about for a while doing a solo podcast called Rod Dreher is My Best Friend, where I just read all of his articles and talk about them because I love them. He's a delightful man. Not really. I don't think I would like to hang out with him because he would say some shit that I don't think would go over well with either of us. But as far as guys to just look at and observe, he's one of the best. And unfortunately, now he's just on Substack, and I'm not going to pay Rod Dreher a dime to read his shit. So I have been paywalled off from his opinions.
Oh boy. I got, two things. One, your bookshelf must be a sight to behold.
It has a lot of interesting things to it. Let's say that.
A land of contrasts.
Yes.
Two, from Rod Dreher's Wikipedia page. He was a film reviewer for the South Florida Sun-Sentinel and chief film critic for the New York Post.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine what kind of takes this guy has.
I will say not all of it's up anymore because like a lot of old like internet or old newspaper adjacent things, it just doesn't exist on the internet anymore. Someone didn't bother to keep it up. But the ones I have read, he's less interesting than Armand White. I'll say that. Okay. At least in terms of film criticism.
All right.
Armand White used to be a good film critic and had insane opinions. Now he's a bad film critic with insane opinions. But either way, you never know what you're going to get from Armand White. Dreher was a lot more cookie cutter.
Okay. All right. Whew. Man, what a saga.
But with that out of the way.
Oh my God. That was almost 20 minutes, by the way.
I'm sorry. I love I just love him so much. And I could talk about him all day long.
And you have, it would seem.
I have. Literally everyone that knows me, like all of my friends in Colorado, both my partners, like random people at bars apparently, all know that this man is very important to me. He's a great conservative artist the same way that Kanye West is a great conservative artist in that they have no filter and just constantly talk about how shitty they are, and half the time don't seem to realize what they're saying or what the implications of it are. And I think that's great.
Oh my god. Okay.
It's the same joy I can get out of like Neil Breen, where like Neil Breen, because he doesn't have essentially the skill to stop himself, he just spews everything out that he's thinking, and you're getting a very like uncensored view of his psyche, and half the time it's not quite legible, but I just enjoy when people are able to tear down that wall of I shouldn't write this and just write it anyways.
Another filmmaker with kind of a libertarian slant, if I'm not mistaken.
Very much so. I don't want to ever have someone ask him about his politics because I feel they wouldn't be good. As is, it's kind of a gray area because he's very anti-corporation, very anti-media, seems to be,
Anti-bank.
I think I made this comment when it's very anti-bank in a way that is like, is this, do you realize that these could be anti-Semitic dog whistles, or are you just kind of you and you don't realize anything?
Yeah, you're leaning heavy on cabal there, brother.
Yeah. But he also, I mentioned this in my review of one of his films that I think it was Pass Through. The year that Pass Through came out, when I watched it, there was more actors of color in main roles in that movie than in most of the Hollywood movies I'd seen that year. He's a strange man.
Land of contrasts.
A land of contrast again. I recommend everyone watch at least one Neil Breen film in your life. It should probably I Am Here ... now. But also, you're not going to go wrong if you do anything but the first film. I think the first film is his weakest. It's his least strange. He seems to have not fully been following his muse. It's almost a legible plot that I can understand. So it's minor Breen. But anyways, we had an idea for the structure of this episode, and it was to talk about some things we had experienced over the past 2 years that maybe we just wanted to bring up and be like, hey, have you listened to this before? Maybe you should. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I brought basically, like, the couple of things that I have here are primarily, I mean, I fear that my list might be a little solipsistic, but it is my list after all. It's not so much like recommendations for you, although I could definitely provide those, but it's just, these are 5 things that happened that I find interesting.
Okay. Mine are all, I took the much more literal reading of the assignment and took 5 things that I have 1 game, 1 movie, 1 album, 1 TV show, and 1 book to recommend people.
I could probably like do that in like, I could probably follow along though, if I had to like narrow it down to like 1.
I do have some honorable mentions for some of those.
Okay.
But yeah.
Should I go? Should I start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so number 1, and so these are not so much recommendations as they are a general life update. So this might not. So I don't know that you're going to get a whole lot of shit for your Plex server, but you know we're having fun. This is a conversation.
Yeah.
So and this is going to be in roughly chronological order from about the time where I believe the name of the episode is Randy Quaid Pride Flag was released.
Yeah, which is one of our best episodes. I do want to say that. I listened back to it recently. It's genuinely really good and one of my favorite titles.
To now. So number 1. Let me tell you a story about a guy who got an idea. And that idea was he was going to become the next great film critic. And how that totally did not fucking happen. As you may have guessed, that
was his name Rod Dreher?
No.
It's either Rod Dreher or Derek. I don't know.
It was me. I went to Concordia University for a master's degree in film studies with the idea that I was going to be a big player in the cinephile scene of the great city of Montreal, where I live. Several tens of thousands of dollars later, which I know I shouldn't be crowing because I'm speaking to an American.
I almost had my debt canceled, Derek. It was so great for a couple years there.
But I got my MA. I wrote my MA thesis, and then I started a little website called Dim the House Lights with friend of the pod, Juan Barquin. And for a long time, for a few years, we both gave it a real honest go. We were like just cranking that stuff out, writing reviews, seeing new movies, all that. I even got fucking accredited as press to go to a film festival. And that's probably the pinnacle of my career as a film critic. But it just continued not happening because turns out being a film critic is a job. And I already had a job.
Fair.
So I didn't like, and you know what they say about monetizing your hobbies? Don't. This is a lesson that like all these people on Twitch and TikTok are going to learn whenever they turn 30. So I'm taking the scenic route for this. In 2018 or 2019, I was like, fuck this. This is not happening. I quit. It's like, it sucks to pitch. It sucks to do everything. I feel it's like I already have a job. Fuck this. So where am I going to make my bones? Where am I going to make my reputation and my fortune? That's right, folks. Poetry. I forsook the. I stopped with the second least lucrative form of writing to go to the least lucrative form of writing.
I was about to say that's where all the money is. You're going to be the next Rupee Kaur or whatever,
or like Amanda Lovelace, or Lana Del Rey? Question mark.
I like Lana Del Rey. Fine.
Like I don't have a Lana Del Rey take. I don't really listen to the music, therefore I don't really have a take. I can't imagine that the poetry collection is good.
I honestly had no idea she released a poetry collection, which is funny because I think I like her music significantly more than you because you don't really listen to it at all. I think it's pretty darn good. Do I think it's 10 out of 10 Pitchfork score good? Not really, but at least Fiona Apple got the same score the same year, so I'll take it. That album's fucking great.
But
yes, poetry. Tell us about how you're raking in the millions now.
Yes.
With your poetry collections.
So I started writing poetry in. I made the joke that I turned 31 and started writing poetry. So it was 4 years ago, which would place it in 2018. Because my math is good. That's a callback to an episode that you haven't heard yet. And so I started just writing poetry because it seemed fun. And a lot of my favorite criticism anyway felt more like prose poems than, the stuff, than incidentally Roger Ebert stuff. Long story short, was skip ahead. In late 2021, I put out a chapbook with like poems and shit.
I own it.
That's right. It's called My House But Not My House. If you look for it, you'll find it. And
it's good. Derek will probably not hype himself up, but I say this as someone who is Derek's friend. So I mean, obviously, like I am biased, but also like just as a book of poetry, I genuinely really, really enjoyed it enough that last year for her birthday, I made my partner a kind of like poetry compilation thing because I was like birds is something we talked about a lot. Like me and her, like when we were first getting to know each other, she loves birds. And I was like, there's no good compilations of poetry about birds. Let me make my own essentially. So I looked through all of the poetry books I owned, pulled out, I think it was 30-ish poems that involved either birds as the central image or as a major piece of imagery, and compiled them all into like a little book I bound, including one I wrote that no one else is ever going to see besides her. And one of your poems is in there.
That's turbo adorable and very flattering. Thank you. I know you told me this before, but I forgot, and I'm glad you reminded me.
But yes, chapbook.
Yeah, I mean, and I have like poetry friends. I'm in the scene. I'm never gonna make money doing this, but I do like the people, and I do like writing, and ultimately that's its own reward, really. I'm working on some other more long form stuff at the moment. But yeah, I mean that's still happening. There's going to be another chapbook out eventually. I'll say this much: it's going to be a lot more sci-fi, because that's just where my brain goes.
Are we ever going to get Oxblood in a chapbook somewhere?
Maybe if I like do odds and sods, because it's very much not science fiction. But maybe if I ever do because I do want to. I had a discussion with a friend of mine was a big baseball fan. It's like, we should do a collaborative baseball chapbook because I have several poems about baseball. Maybe if I do a more general sports one, I could throw Oxblood in there because that is kind of about hockey. So
yeah,
it's not really about hockey.
It's one of my favorite ones you've written. So,
oh, thank you.
Enough that I remember the title still.
But yeah, I released a chapbook, and it's weird. I'm still too embarrassed to call myself a poet most of the time. But now it's going to be out in the ether. So number 1 on my list, I put out a fucking chapbook.
Nice. Segue, I suppose, is my first thing is kind of about poetry in a sense. It's about writing. I'm going to be the much more boring person during this because I kind of just wrote a list of media. But a lot of those involve why they're important to me and like in my life and things I've done. So I suppose that's suitable.
Yeah.
Are you aware of Mr. Mark Z. Danielewski?
House of Leaves.
Correct. Yes. That is the one book people know by him.
Brother of, who's his sister? His sister is somebody.
I didn't actually know that. Mark Dan. We're Googling on the air. Back to the old days.
That's right.
Let's see. Poe. His relative is Poe.
That's right.
A singer?
Yeah.
Songwriter? I don't know who this person is, I'll be honest.
Hey Pretty fame.
Don't know what that is.
Good song.
I'm sorry. I believe you. It's a nice title. It was from 2001. Interesting.
Ooh. So what did Mark Z. Danielewski do?
Oh, he's done a couple other things since. One of his things that I haven't read all of yet, but I want to get to at some point. He made a series of books called The Familiar, which I believe was originally supposed to be like a 34-part book series, something genuinely fucking wild like that. And it got canceled after the first 6, I believe, because the publisher who was releasing it was like, hey, this is costing a lot of money to publish because you do weird shit with typography constantly, and it's not making any money. So sorry, we can't keep doing this, which is fair. I get it. You can't publish a book for an audience of 1, which is essentially just me. But the first 5 volumes actually got released. It was supposed to be 27 volumes.
Fuck.
I like it. It is problematic.
Oh no!
It's one of those things. It's a lot like the Wachowski's Cloud Atlas.
Cloud Atlas,
and
okay.
like I see what you're doing, but also kind of business. Where like a lot of it's written in vernacular, but the problem is the majority of the characters are not American and not white. So you get some things where you're like, I don't know if that's like the best way to be like transcribing this like dialogue. But it's very interesting. And I think that it's never like actively offensive. It's more like passively eyebrow raising, let's say.
Sure.
Like, you probably could have done that better. But the thing I actually wanted to talk about is his other book that was actually, I believe, nominated for the National Book Award, called Only Revolutions, which is kind of a road novel, I guess. Not I guess. It definitely is a road novel, told from 2 different points of view, and because Danielewski is well known for his very strange formatting of things. This is never as weird as House of Leaves. Like, House of Leaves is kind of hella extra in that.
It's out there, yeah.
Which is a great book, I do want to say. I think it's a great book, even though I think the framing story with Johnny Truant is not good. This, on the other hand, there is no framing story. It's just the one thing. It's 2 different characters on the same road trip talking about the same events, but from their own perspective. And if you read it one direction, it is like if you hold it on a certain way, it's the one character. And if you flip it upside down, it's the other character. And their text is on the same page constantly together.
Okay.
And essentially from the beginning of one character, it starts out that their text is very big and it slowly gets smaller over the course of it, and vice versa. And there's 2 columns of text throughout the entire book, one of which is the actual story, which is written as poetry. And then the second column is a date in history, done sequentially, and things that happened on that date. And I think it is, from an emotional standpoint, I think I actually like it more than House of Leaves. Like, I really, really like it. I think it can be a little bit too obtuse occasionally, but I don't mind obtuse things. So it's not hugely problematic for me. And I will say the one thing that it doesn't always land is that it uses a lot of like slang and purposefully casual language. And when you're trying to make a poem with super like rich, vivid imagery and like, there's definitely a rhyming pattern. It's not consistent. It kind of comes and goes, but it's definitely in there to emphasize certain things. When you're trying to do that for hundreds of pages, there's some awkward wording sometimes where I'm like, that's kind of ungainly, or that doesn't quite work the way that it feels like it should work. And there's a couple word choices that I'm like, that's silly instead of like what you're trying to go for. But as a whole, I think it's really beautiful. You can kind of see time progress as they go. And it's kind of his version of the Great American Novel, I would say, in that it starts in, I think, the late 1800s is kind of where I placed the early parts of it. And as it goes, it just moves through time and into the future. Like these two people who have fallen in love with each other are going throughout time and going throughout history and attempting to outlive it and always catching up with them. I really fucking liked it. I would highly recommend it to people. I haven't read a lot of books recently, but Only Revolutions. I found it genuinely very beautiful.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of thing, even if someone doesn't like, they would respect, but I found it very readable.
I am really bad at, I'm terrible at reading, and I'm especially terrible at reading fiction. Like, the vast majority of what I read is nonfiction, and poetry, which I guess is fiction, technically. But the last thing this is me building a bridge. The last thing that I read that I finished, I also have a bad habit of reading books that are, there's like sort of a pocket genre of books that are placed in the self-help section of the store that aren't exactly self-help. They're about creativity or productivity or stuff like that. And that is like, that's like a weirdly large amount of the stuff that I read. Interesting.
Do you have an example? I genuinely don't quite know what an example would be of that.
So here are my reading habits. I will just hoover any and all style guides. Like literally next to the computer that is recording this very conversation, I have Writing with Style, a new edition of The Economist Style Guide by Lane Greene, which is an insane thing to own.
Yeah, that's... I didn't expect that to be the thing that we were talking about, but that's fascinating.
But I will, like, any style guide, any how to write basically guide, and it could be anything from like one of the last things
On Writing by Stephen King.
That's the one that's more of like but that's like very autobiographical, to something like the Poetry Home Repair Kit by Ted Kuser, which is a lot more plain spoken and less autobiographical. I have a Mary Oliver How to Write Poetry book. I will just down these things. But in the sort of self-help books that are not self-help books, I would place stuff like anything that has to do more with like creativity. Stuff like Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon, or even something like How to Write One Song by Jeff Tweedy from Wilco. I will that is a lot of what I read. Because I'm really interested in how people make things. But the last thing that I read, that I finished, is a book called 4,000 Weeks. And I'm just going to pull up the name of the author. Here it is. 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals, by an author named Oliver Berkman. And it is nominally about time management from a self-confessed, like, productivity guy, but it ends up being a lot more existential and a lot more heady than just, here's how you get your shit done in a day. It's a lot more top-down view, because the premise of the book is that you are alive for 4,000 weeks. And like, depending on when you get to this book, a lot of those are probably behind you. So here's a kind of existentialist way to approach what do you actually want to do? It's like, forget about your fucking to-do list. Like, how do you want to fucking live your life? And there's a lot of stuff, and like, my current jag is sort of, I don't know about this course of like ultimate optimization we're all on. I feel like a life worth living is a life that has just like a little friction.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this follows from books that I've read before. Like, something else that I read a lot are just collections of essays. So I like everybody, I read fucking Trick Mirror by Gia Tolentino when it came out. I read How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell. Those two books speak to each other a lot, and those two books also speak to 4,000 Weeks a lot, I found.
Interesting. I hadn't heard of any of these before this.
This is a lot of my universe.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is like a whole world of kind of book that I was just I didn't conceptualize of. I have old person brain in that in terms of references, I just wanted to say this because I need to get it out. Otherwise, it's just going to stick there. I really thought when you started talking about this book that you were talking about 700 Sundays by Billy Crystal. The autobiography he wrote that I think turned into like a stage play or something. But I will let you continue. I needed to get it out.
All the books that I mentioned, with the possible exception of Writing with Style, because it's very dry and it's like needlessly curt. It's kind of like stodgy old man style guide a little bit, but it's The Economist, so
No, I definitely understand that. This might be a strange. It's a coming together of both this and something we were talking about before the podcast. Is I really enjoy watching videos on how speedruns are put together and how they're executed, even though I have no interest in doing it. Obviously, like, you actually write, so it's different, but I think that same enjoyment of watching a process and seeing the thought behind the process and where it comes from.
Yeah, that's basically it. So all of those books that I mentioned are like, I recommend to varying degrees, but I did really like 4,000 Weeks.
Nice. It is now on my to-read list. I added it on there while we were talking.
It is with an audible clunk that I move on to this next section because it has precious little to do with the written word. Okay, so 2022 was a bit of an annus horribilis for your boy. I got hospitalized for the first time in my adult life with a non-life-threatening but nonetheless really annoying ailment. I got a different ailment that I had to go to the hospital for. It's like not a good year. In part, and the thing that didn't kick it off, but that made sure that it was not like, one's an outlier, two's a coincidence, three's a trend. Well, this made it a trend. And if you've got a big soft heart for animals, keep your fucking Kleenexes close by. My cat Koopa died in the summer of 2022 at the age of 10 of what I can only suspect was some kind of heart failure. And it fucking sucked. I love that fucking cat. And it was so sudden, and it caught Steph and I both by surprise. And it was real rough going there for a second. And like the same day, we got wind of some friends who live out in the suburbs of Ottawa. And they're like, hey, look at what we fucking found, or look at what's following us. And it's this like mangy cat following them around because this cat obviously knows where there's humans, there's probably food. And this cat was in need of food, like flea bitten, clearly had been out in the elements for a little bit. And so our friends proceeded to a little bit of catnapping. And basically through a long, slow process, we adopted this fucking street cat. And like Steph and I made a day of like going down to Ottawa, picking up the cat, who turns out is, to the best guess of the vets, like between the ages of 9 and 12. Has a very scratchy voice. This cat, which we named Biscotti, or we didn't even name her Biscotti. That was one of our friends out in Ottawa who named her Biscotti. Best guess of the vet is that this cat is between 9 and 12, and I think closer to 12 than 9. Didn't have fleas, but clearly had fleas. Mm-hmm. Definitely underweight. and had like kind of like a weird growth on one of her shoulders. So we bring this cat in. It's like, okay, well, we were out one cat. What were we going to do? Were we going to say no? And so we said yes. So go to Ottawa, we get this cat, and our friend, shout out to Anastasia, who is basically served as this cat's patron, like helped us with vet bills and stuff. The cat, so Biscotti got surgery to remove this growth. It was definitely a tumor, but ended up that it was a benign growth, so that's good. And the vet said, like, this, like, I don't think you appreciate how unlikely it is that this is benign. Like, this is basically a miracle. And it's like, yeah. I like to say, I don't think I've ever told you this, but I like to think to myself that all artists are unions, because we believe in, like, cosmic coincidences as being meaningful. And certainly I think that this is meaningful, because if you stretch out if you zoom out enough, basically, us losing Coop and us gaining Biscotti was basically instantaneous. It was basically simultaneous. And so, like hell, I was going to say no, even though this cat is old and definitely deaf and possibly has cancer. But thankfully, she's just old and deaf. So that's thing number 2. This street cat that now hangs out on my bed.
I mean, that's awesome. I love that. See, again, you are... my things are so pathetic compared to these.
No, I mean, it's fine. I mean, you brought it.
I think we were answering 2 different assignments. I mean, I'd never had cats until moving in with my partners, actually. Because I was allergic for a very long time. I think still am slightly allergic, but it's a kind of where it doesn't bother me unless I were to stick the cat in my eye. Right. And I don't go around doing that very often with most things. That's where my eyes go, is that space. But hey, I thought of a segue as we're doing this. But one of the nice things about living with partners and also just these partners in general is that I mean this in a positive way, is that they're both normies when it comes to a lot of like media things. Like they're the reason I finally saw Frozen and Frozen 2, which good movies. Frozen 2 especially, I think is the better of the 2. Turns out those were good. I saw Encanto because of them. And both because I don't usually watch TV. I'm not usually a big TV person. It's too much of a commitment for me. But both of the TV shows / web series I wanted to kind of bring up and talk about. We've watched a lot of other ones. We watched Hannibal together, which me and my partner Nate, Hannibal's wonderful. Really loved it. Also watched the web series Carmilla, which I don't know if you're familiar with.
I have no idea what that is.
It's really cute. I think the ending is a little bit not great, but the 3 seasons of it that they did as a web series are very cute. It's I guess you could say a modern retelling of Carmilla, like the novel, the vampire novel, but it's more like vampire meets other cute girl at college. They fall in love and then they have adventures, more or less. Very much enjoyed it, and then also watched Hell of a Boss because of them. Which, are you familiar with that?
I don't know. I don't watch a ton of TV either, you know?
I don't either. I hadn't before. If you were on Tumblr at all for like a few years there,
it was the years I was not there.
This is to the audience, yes. You may be familiar with Has Been Hotel. I think it's okay. But Hell of a Boss is the same creators and the same setting, and I'm not going to say it's a revolutionary piece of art, but I find it consistently very, very funny and consistently very moving and cute. But the TV show I'm getting to, that like passing all those by, getting to the normie TV show I really wanted to bring up and talk about because I fucking loved it, was the Castlevania TV series.
Oh, okay.
I expected to enjoy it because I heard it was like my genuine answer I was about to say, I heard it was violent, so I like violent animation. I probably would have enjoyed that. I heard it was fun. And the first season definitely like worked really well for me, but the second and third seasons especially kind of where it fully kicks into what it's trying to do. And it's the first time I've ever gotten the feeling at the end of a TV show, like, this is where the show should end. But I just want to have a series that is, I don't even care if it's canonical. I just want these same characters to go on like Monster of the Week adventures because I love being with these characters so much. And my partner pointed out that's what fan fiction is basically. So this is the first time I've ever been like, man, what if I wrote fan fiction for a thing? I didn't because I don't write anymore apparently at all. And that'd be effort. But
That would be effort.
literally my partner just texted me and said, I can hear you talking about Castlevania. But yeah, I really fucking loved it. The second and third seasons especially, there's a lot of just great characterization I didn't expect. One of the best characters in season 1, his name's Isaac. He kind of works for Dracula at first. I'm not going to get into the whole plotting of the thing because there's a lot of plot things that happen, but he works for Dracula and eventually he doesn't, is all you need to know. And at first when he works for Dracula, he's very boring and just not super interesting. And then you kind of realize as his character goes along that he had more or less purposely shut down a lot of human emotions he was having, a lot of human reactions he was having to things based on some past things that had happened to him. And as he grows and expands and meets more people and kind of more clarifies what he wants out of life and what his moral compass is, he grows into this really fascinating person. He's also Sufi Muslim, which I didn't expect in the series of like vampires. But it's also done super well in a way that I thought was both respectful and it deepened his character a lot. Really loved him. He's great. And there's also a part where a very hot vampire lady puts a man on a leash and beats him up. So I was into that too. It's got everything you could want. But if people haven't watched it, I would say it's one of the... I have now been surprised by multiple shows on Netflix. I also watched that League of Legends show, Arcane. Which, when it first started, I was like, I don't know if I really want to watch this, because like I don't know anything about League of Legends. I don't care about League of Legends. And this is like an animated show about League of Legends. Who gives a fuck? But like by the end of the first like couple episodes, I was really hooked on it, and I am so excited for the second season. I will say, even if you don't care about League of Legends, very good show, very emotionally involving, amazing animation work. Thank you to my normie partners for having me watch actual TV shows that I end up enjoying quite a bit.
I actually have an Arcane take because I have friends who like I watched like the first chunk of it, and because my friends are big, like one of my friends is like a big League of Legends head.
Mm-hmm.
Did not care for it.
Interesting. Did you get to them growing up?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't like the art style, and I don't think it's well written.
Okay. This is a differing take. It's
like it is not for me. I don't like. I see what it's doing, but it's like it's not for me.
That's fair. I mean, we occasionally disagree on this here podcast. For example, you like Raging Bull, and I like good movies instead.
You can't do that.
Yeah, but I want to be a dick about it, so I can do that.
Sure.
But no, I mean, hey, it's not necessarily for everyone. I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah. I don't watch a ton of TV. I watch a lot of television once in a blue moon. Often when I don't, like, often between jobs is when I just chain a lot of television. Steph and I had a second where we were watching Jeopardy regularly for like a few months. And that's as much television as I'll watch.
Yeah, for what's worth, these were all streaming things. We don't have a hookup to the television business.
I kind of like, you know, I watch like, I'll throw on like a few episodes of Bob's Burgers every now and again. But generally I'll either watch a movie or I'll just go through what's on YouTube, honestly.
Yeah, YouTube is definitely one of the big ones for me. I also found out, speaking of normie things that I was introduced to that I ended up really liking. First of all, did you know that Markiplier and MatPat are different people?
Well, I know who Markiplier is, but I don't know who the other guy is.
I think he's the one that does like the game theory stuff. I feel like
Oh,
I don't
I've heard
know.
of game
Don't
theory.
like him. Didn't really care about him. Thought they were the same person. Never bothered to watch Markiplier. Assumed he was like a PewDiePie where he just screamed a lot and maybe said racial slurs. I don't know what he does. But both my partners really like him, and now I really like him too. He's a nice boy. Very funny boy. Very much enjoy his content. YouTube recommendation for one of the most popular people on there. I don't think anyone needs a recommendation from me, but yeah.
Markiplier seems like a solid dude.
Yeah, like he genuinely seems like a very nice person from what I hear from partners. He is genuinely like a nice person and donates to things a lot. Like essentially uses his platform in good ways. So hey, can't complain about that. And I genuinely think he's pretty funny.
One of my niche YouTube holes, and this is my segue back to this is me kind of like calling for the baton in the race. Is one of the, because I have I've heard Steph describe my YouTube feed as weird. I follow like a lot of movie stuff, some sports stuff, but the two kind of like twin niches or three. So our triplet niches I have are outdoorsy dudes camping, and it's just 45 minutes of them like setting up their tent and making coffee over a fire and unloading the bags and it's like, and the sound design's really nice because it's just the Australian wilderness and there's like kookaburras and shit. And there's also this one dude from Japan who built a camper on the back of a truck, and he just drives around and eats food. He just
do they like talk about what they're doing?
Nope, neither of these dudes talk.
Fascinating.
They describe it in subtitles, but they don't talk. So that's one. The second one is restoration videos of like old rusted shit.
Oh, I can understand that. I watched the one paint guy that everyone watches. Delightful.
Yeah, me it's just like, and again, it's dude. I assume they're dudes, but it's just no one talks. Here is a pair of rusted out scissors. Let's bring these back to like, let's make these new again. 25 minutes.
Love it.
One of the channels that I follow, it's fun because I notice very quickly that whenever they like scrub down the rust with like a stiff wool brush or something, they cut in eighths. Like they go like cut. So it's very musical in that way. 3, again, no one talks. People just making like ridiculous street food. It's like, here is like a bowl of fries with like a pound of cheese on top.
That is fascinating. I was unaware these were niches of YouTube. Hearing about, I am on people talking about media YouTube pretty much primarily, so this is very interesting for me.
I mean, I got some of that. Like I've got like
your Jacob Gellers, things like that.
Oh, I don't follow him.
Jacob. This is my side plug. Everyone should be listening to Jacob Geller if you like video game or just general criticism of everything. He also has videos where he doesn't talk about video games at all and just talks about the history of execution methods. A fucking amazing guy. Love every one of his content. The fact that he puts out such high quality content every single month is wild to me. He'll put out like a 40-minute video every month. It's like the best thing I'll watch all month on YouTube.
I mean, I follow like there's a bunch of like there's like Patrick Willems and the Royal Ocean. What the fuck are they called? I still follow Every Frame of Painting on the off chance that Tony ever decides to make a movie again, make a video again. Yeah, Amazing Japanese Famous Food Video Collections, 70 minutes. It's just people frying eggs and beef,
Weirdly, my ex was super into that, so I can kind of understand that one a little more. Like, I have more experience with that. The other two, I did not know those were entire areas of YouTube, and I enjoy the variety that life offers us.
And Dan Olsen has been on a heater for the last 2 years.
Yeah,
he's putting out mondo good stuff.
Yeah, I have watched all three of his most recent kind of finance scam related videos, like the metaverse one, the NFT one, and the GameStop stock one. That's probably right. 10 or more times each, and they're multiple hours long. And
there's a lot of what I like to call John Boyce exploitation. Obviously,
yes, you're Bobby Broccoli.
Bobby Broccoli. I'm very excited for his new one. Mm-hmm. Because I was alive when the Nortel thing happened, so yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. So this and probably the most boomer channel that I follow on YouTube is. Are you familiar with the television series The Midnight Special from the 70s?
Familiar, never watched it.
Okay, so the Midnight Special. So whoever owns the rights to the Midnight Special decided to be okay, so let's just put all the fucking shows on YouTube. And so one night I'm watching ELO play Rock Area or some shit, and Steph is what the fuck are you watching? It's I'm watching ELO. I'm watching the Electric Light Orchestra. What the fuck do you think I'm doing? Or is something weirder than that? Midnight Special is just kind of like a variety show. No, it was one where it was an episode where it was hosted by Anne Murray and Steve Martin did stand-up.
Yeah, looking at these notable guest stars, this is very much an up Derek's alley kind of thing.
Yeah,
I can see why.
It's a bunch of people that I've never heard of and a bunch of people who I think are great.
Your Genocide, your XTC.
Yes, Focus, doing Hocus Pocus. At twice the speed because they only had 4 minutes instead of the usual 6. Very good content. Focus is a Dutch progressive rock band that you may or may not be familiar with.
I've never heard of. My progressive rock more or less begins and ends at the Canterbury scene.
Right.
But I did listen to Genesis on your recommendation. I listened to Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Turns out, fucking great album.
Great album. My third thing is going to be very, very quick.
Okay.
I was at a get-together with some friends of mine, and I was sitting in a very comfortable chair looking at their TV up on the wall, and I realized, pretty sure that used to be more in focus. And so I went and got an eye exam. And to complete the hirsute dad combo, I started wearing glasses. I am now a proud card-carrying member of #GlassesGang. And if I looked professorial before, motherfucker, I definitely am professorial now.
Do you have a tweed jacket?
I used to, back when I fit in it.
I am the exact opposite. I've been wearing glasses since I was 18. Never needed them a day in my life, but
it's all these screens you see.
It's more just my face is better.
I have that, but with my beard. It's if I ever shave, it's I don't look like me. It's I look, first of all, way younger, and second of all, because I basically look, to steal a joke from a comedian, I'm not sure I want to name drop. I look like a giant baby. But yeah, that's it. I started wearing glasses. I have 3 pairs. I think they look good on me.
You're living the glasses lifestyle.
I am living I'm living the male magnet. What the fuck is the weeb word for person who wears glasses?
I don't know that. Not a weeb over here, Derek. Rude.
Okay, listen. So if you don't know, you don't care, and if you do know, you've outed yourself as a weeb. So congratulations.
I googled weeb glasses, and I did not get what I expected.
Weeb glasses. You know what?
I'm just getting links to glasses that glow, so you can get the anime glasses look, you can't see through them.
Yeah, the Gendou Ikari special.
Thank you. I was gonna make the same reference, but I would have outed myself as more of a weeb if I did that. So
hey, I put in my time. I was in high school primarily.
In the weeb mines.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's tough being a weeb out in the sticks. I tell you what. This is 2003, 2004. Yeah, the internet, but I was on. Internet was expensive even still then. I can just download any old thing. I went to the local mall to ask for the Neon Genesis Evangelion box set, and it's like, well, we have to import that shit, dog. It's like, well, never mind.
God. I mean, but hey, if you had it now, it'd be worth like fucking $500.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that there's not a good American, like, newer edition of that original series is insane to me.
It is odd.
Yeah. I just have my VHS copies. I have a complete VHS collection of the original series.
Not a weeb.
No, not a weeb. To be fair, that was the first anime I ever watched, was Evangelion, which kind of, I think, was maybe setting the bar too high for myself.
My prized VHS collection is a VHS copy of Krzysztof Kieslowski's The Decalogue.
Ooh, fancy.
I know, right?
I'll say my favorite thing I own on VHS is a live video of the band Flipper. That has never been digitized as far as I'm aware, like, at least officially. I'm sure I could find it on a website somewhere, but it's like an old tape of a show just on a VHS tape. And Flipper are, by a good margin, my favorite punk rock band, one of my favorite rock bands of all time. I have a tattoo of their logo on my ankle, and I'm very happy to have that, just like I have an original edition of their first album, Generic.
The word I was looking for is Mega Neko.
Oh, yeah, I can say I've never heard of that.
Well, like I said, I put in my time. I don't know. I don't know if this is the same for you, Isabelle, but high school was a weird time.
It was more for personal things for me than art. I was just really into swans and noise music, and Madonna were my jams.
Of course you were. That does not surprise me at all.
Yeah,
So what is your third thing? What are you bringing to the table?
Well, speaking of music that I enjoy, look at that. It's perfect. As you know, and I'm sure many people listening know, I was on this kick for a while where I had so many unlistened to albums in my iTunes that I just told people, hey, here's a batch of 100 at a time. You pick some and I will listen to them. Before I can add anything else new to my iTunes, I have to get through this entire backlog, which was 2,000 albums I think I had to listen to in total. And got through all those. I'm still doing it. I slowed down pace a lot, where I've started adding new things that I've had downloaded but haven't added to my iTunes for a while. Kind of going through those now. But I've listened to literally thousands of albums in the past few years that are like new to me albums. A lot of them have been fucking great. The Genesis album, loved it. Any Other City by Life Without Buildings, I want to say is a band name. It's Life Without Buildings, right? I'm
gonna trust you on this one. I'm
gonna
defer to you.
Yeah, Life Without Buildings, their album Any Other City. Amazing. But the one I have two. One is just a honorable mention, and the one is the one I really want to talk about. Number one, the honorable mention, Michael Pissaro's Nature, Denatured, and Found Again. I am a massive fan of the Wandelweiser school of experimental composers.
Now, I know what that is, but for the audience.
For some people who somehow don't know, it's a school of experimental composition where the main focus is on small sounds and silence. Okay. One of the work that introduced me to it is a collaborative album by Keith Rowe and Radu Malfatti, who is a prepared guitar player for Keith Rowe and a trombone player for Radu Malfatti / composer. And they did an album. I believe it's just the symbol for epsilon is the title of the album. Mm-hmm. And the first track has I think 7 notes played total, and it's 30 minutes long. It's just long patches of silence between those. I fell in love with it. It's very unapproachable for anyone who is looking to get into this, but what is not unapproachable is Michael Pissaro's Nature, Denatured, and Found Again. It's long, I will say that. It is 4 discs, which is a bit to get into. But it's essentially that general group of composers and performers who are kind of all a loose school conglomeration of people who have similar interests in those small sounds and quiet and low volumes and natural sounds as well. They, I guess, annually hosted performances where they would play music in the forest, and there would essentially be kind of a walking exhibit where you would walk through this forest that they kind of had and hear pieces going as you walk through the forest, and then other parts would be just the nature sounds. And he took some recordings of those, and It was actually 5 discs. Sorry, my bad. And he presents a couple of them as they were. And then as the discs go on, he fucks with them more and more and abstracts them in ways that I found like not just interesting, like in terms of like it had timbral qualities that I'd never heard anywhere else, which is something I love. I've heard almost every timbre an instrument can have, I feel like. So when I hear a new one, I'm like, oh fuck, I've never heard that sound before. That's interesting. But it also ends up being very emotionally moving in a way that a lot of contemporary composition isn't for me. Like even things I really enjoy a lot of spectral composers, but their work usually doesn't like move me. It's more just like, oh, this is really interesting. It's a lot to think about. It's like the sounds are super cool, but it doesn't touch me in that same way. But the way that it has this kind of interaction between the human element and the like more natural quote unquote element, and the ways that they both can be starkly different and can also dissolve across this line is I found really moving. So if you're interested in experimental modern composition and free improvisation, Nature Denatured and Found Again. But the one I really want to talk about is, I think I am a bit of an evangelist for the band Lamb Chop.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of them. They are perpetually one of those bands that are so good consistently that I feel no one really cares anymore. Like Low was actually like that for a long time, until they released their last 2 albums where they got very, very different from what they were before. And I think it made people repay attention to them.
I think Deerhoof is like that as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, speaking of Low, I think it's fair to say, like, for people who don't know the band, there's main 2 people in it are Alan Sparhawk and Mimi Parker. Mimi Parker, unfortunately, passed away in 2022. And Low are maybe, in my opinion, the best American rock band of the past like 30 years, and never put out a bad album and put out some of the best albums of all time, in my view. That one definitely hurt in a way that a lot of celebrity deaths didn't, or don't, I should say. But just wanted to say, hey, Low, great band, R.I.P. Mimi Parker, because, yeah, amazing work all around. But Lamb Chop, who are probably the second or third best band in American rock music the past 30 years for me. Because again, I haven't heard all of their albums yet. I'm still working through all of them because they've also put out quite a few. They've been going since the early 90s, just like Low had. And they're still putting out new stuff. But I've never heard a single album that's like less than like a 7.5 out of 10, and usually more like 8 or higher. But I finally listened to their debut album, which is called I Hope You're Sitting Down, / Jack's Tulips. And I was very surprised to find that it's one of my favorite Lamb Chop records ever. I didn't expect them to to go that hard on their first album. I figured it would take them a little bit to really get into the groove of what they're doing, because they're doing a very specific thing, but a thing that can be easily taken for granted. I think I've compared them before to like Steely Dan in that their lyrics are so consistently both cynical and blackly hilarious, and have these characters that are pathetic in a lot of ways, but at the same time there's still a lot of pathos there, and it doesn't feel dismissively cynical or dismissively like viewing these people as pathetic. It has some sympathy while still realizing that they are like not people you want to be around necessarily. But that also is very easy to miss, as many of Steely Dan's biggest hits and the way that they were reacted to have been missed plenty of times. There's a lot of things going on under the surface that aren't immediately apparent because the top of it is so almost easy listening, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And Lamb Chop are very much the same way in that they are surprisingly confrontational, but only if you actually are paying attention and not if you're just listening to the overview of it. And I Hope You're Sitting Down has some of the best examples of that. One of the best songs on the album is called Soaky in the Pooper, which is a fun name for an album. And it's basically about a guy dying in a bathroom. And has this sing-song quality that feels almost silly, but there's this gravity to it because of the subject matter and because of the the quality of the musicianship behind it. And by the end, oh god, I can't remember the lead singer of Lamb Chop's name. Kurt Wagner.
I was going to say Kurt Warner because I am an incorrigible heterosexual. Kurt Warner is both a National Football League and Arena Football League Hall of Famer.
Wow, I mean, hey, love it.
Good for him.
Yeah. But Kurt Wagner has a very, I think it's fair to say, a non-traditional voice.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of that song, hearing him reach for notes that aren't totally within his grasp while talking about this character feels very like touching and beautiful while also kind of grotesque, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And the album has a lot of that. I think it does it super, super well. The song "Oh What a Disappointment" is also great at that. And it happens to have, in my opinion, the best chorus they've ever written, which is from a song called "I Will Drive Slowly." And it's not even the lyrics so much that make it work, which are definitely, they're part of it, but it's an alternating in the chorus where Kurt will sing a line, and then Kurt and some backup singers who actually have nice voices will sing a line, and it kind of switches between the two in this fluid way with really beautiful string arrangement that evokes that feeling of driving, the feeling of you just are in a car with someone you care about, and you're driving slower than you usually would because you want to spend more time with them. And I think it's so evocative and so beautiful. One of my favorite songs that I've heard in the past year. And the rest of the album is pretty darn close to that. So if you are new to the Lamb Chop game, probably Nixon's still where you want to start. Nixon is by far their most approachable still, in my opinion. And also incredible album. But you should get around to I Hope You're Sitting Down because, boy howdy, was not expecting to be as blown away by it as I was, but really was incredible experience.
I've heard it said that How I Quit Smoking is also an album to listen to.
It's one of the ones I actually haven't gotten to yet. I think one of the two or three I haven't gotten there.
Lamb Chop are one of those bands that's like, I keep hearing great things, not just from you, but from others, and I'm aware of their reputation, and I will get to it one day. I will say, at the very least, this band knows how to name a fucking album.
Yeah, they do.
Lamb Chop is a woman. This
is what I want to tell you, What Another Man Spills, which is a cover album, kind of. Which is great.
Just naming an album Thriller is hilarious.
Yeah, and then also they have an album named Flotus, like First Lady of the United States, except it stands for Love Often Turns Us Still, which is a fucking beautiful phrase, too.
I love the 1-2 of Aw Come On and No You Come On, which were released a week apart from each other in 2004.
Yeah. Both great albums. The ending song of Aw Come On, also one of my favorites. It's called Action Figure, A+.
I should probably just listen to Lamb Chop. You've been banging that drum for a while. So I like rock music.
I've heard of this rock music.
I mean, I'm the guy who referenced like ELO like 20 minutes ago. I don't have. There was a period in my life where I was like, oh man, I want to have cool taste in music, and then I realized that took way too much fucking work, and was the juice was absolutely not worth the squeeze.
Oh,
and now
speaking,
I'm just like,
sorry, I'm thinking of it. You reminded me. Speaking of cool taste in music, I have to say a pretentious thing, which is, Captain Beefheart.
I'm aware.
Wrote one of the best albums of all time in Trapmaster Replica.
I've heard this said.
Its album literally changed my life. I will say that. And I listened to his last album, Ice Cream for Crow, recently. I think his last album, I want to say, I might be wrong in that. Either way, it's a very later album for him. It was in the 80s. And I will say, if I hadn't heard Trapmaster Replica first, I think Ice Cream Crow would have also changed my life. Fucking amazing album. It's a more deep cut for Captain Beefheart. Deep cut for a deep cut, but recommended as well.
So which is to say that I don't find myself seeking out like the hot new bands right now. But I am very happy when a band I know puts out an album. So I want to address two things. And these are both bands with a guitar, so you just have to fucking deal with this.
The War on Drugs.
Actually, not the War on Drugs. My opinion on Philadelphia's very own The War on Drugs is widely known, which is I fucking love The War on Drugs. Please don't take that out of context. That joke's never gonna be old. That joke is never gonna be bad. But no, I do love the War on Drugs. I'm not so much familiar. I haven't listened to like Wagon Wheel Blues and like the early stuff. I'm really like one of those bandwagon Lost in the Dream onwards people, but I do like those 3 albums a lot. But the band that I want to put a little bit of shine on is a little rock band that formed in the bustling metropolis of Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, Canada, and are now based in the city of Toronto. They're called Kiwi Jr. And this is a young band. They only have 3 albums out. They had, what was their first album called?
Football Money
in 2019, Cooler Returns in 2020, and Chopper in 2022, which was my favorite album of 2022. I fucking love Kiwi Jr.
Fun fact is that the only one of their albums that has a wiki page is Cooler Returns. And their actual wiki page is like 3 sentences long.
It's really tempting to draw comparisons to Sloan because it's another band from the Maritimes that sort of moved to Toronto and started like becoming a thing, although Sloan is like way bigger in Canada than Kiwi Jr. is anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, but Sloan is like one of those bands I feel like in Canada is like widely considered like one of the best Canadian bands of all time.
You absolutely cannot talk about 90s rock and not talk about Sloan. It is impossible to do so.
I remember listening to Twice Removed when I was in early college. I remember liking it.
Good album.
Should probably listen to it again at some point.
Like, for my money, Twice Removed, good. The good shit is Navy Blues.
Okay. Good to know.
So, Kiwi Jr. Okay. Hey, kids, do you like Pavement?
I do, actually. I like 2 Pavement albums, and that counts.
Do you like XTC?
Yeah, I enjoy an XTC now and then.
Do you like the Kinks?
I like the Village. Oh God, what's it called? The Kinks Village Green Preservation Society.
Yeah. Is it the Kinks versus the Village Green? Whatever. But early Kinks, actually, early Kinks and late Kinks, not the Kinks in the middle.
The Kinks are the Village Green Preservation Society.
Not versus. Well, I have fucking good news for you if you like those 3 bands, because we've got a hoser amalgamation of those 3. And they get progressively, like, it starts off, it's like, oh, this band really likes Pavement. And then the second album, Cooler Returns, which has one of the great songs of our young century, for my money, in Waiting in Line, which is the album closer, is a little more sort of, has a little bit of like roller rink organ, a little bit more piano. It's a little classier. It's like the sort of, oh, this is our second album, will be a little classier. And it's like, oh, these guys don't just like Pavement. They also like a little XTC and a little Kinks. Their third album, Chopper, is like, fuck, this band is really good. And maybe it's because I think the songwriting, the lyrics have gotten a lot better. They're always, I already liked lyrics to begin with, but I feel like they leveled up with Chopper. The album's a little moodier. It's a little more atmospheric. But it still has these kind of very interesting, almost non sequitur-ish lyrics. But a lot of them have to do with movies. Okay. It's like one of the highlights of Chopper is called The Actor Sees the Film, and it starts off with a reference to going to a party with the, quote, human scorpion jacket from Drive. Like some douchebag, right? Yeah. There's a song called The Sound of Music. There is something cinematic about this album.
I enjoy a well done like reference in that way, as opposed to like your Father John Misty way, where it's just corny and shit. No offense to Father John Misty fans out there. I like him in Fleet Foxes. That's the end of it. But yeah, like you saying, that reminds me of the Pavement thing with, you know, that one Pavement lyric. What about the voice of Geddy Lee? How did it get so high? I wonder if he speaks like an ordinary guy. I know him, and he does. And you're my fact-checking cuz.
Fact-checking cuz. But Kiwi Jr. is a lot more, they're a lot more coherent. I feel like what they're pulling from is that same kind of like the hook in The Sound of Music is "So Long Farewell, Julie Andrews." That's it. That's the hook in their chorus.
I dig that.
But it is the complete opposite of your recommendations because this is very approachable indie rock. It's like you have heard something like this before, but I just really like this version of it. So Kiwi Jr. The second band I want to spotlight is probably the band that has made the most headway from 2021 to now in terms of my personal pantheon. And that is a little band from London called The Clientele.
Interesting.
Are you familiar with the work of The Clientele?
I am familiar. I've literally never heard them. It's one of those bands that, like, I remember seeing their albums on various lists, and I was like, I should get to that. And I never did.
Once upon a fall a few years ago, I randomly, probably after I saw it on one of these lists, listened to an album by this band, The Clientele, called Strange Geometry.
Yes, that is the one that I feel like everyone talks about, right?
And I fell in love. I fell in love with the very autumnal sounds. So they're very indebted to like 60s psychedelic pop. They're very indebted to sort of weird 80s English guitar bands. Like one of the common influences of the members of the band early on was felt. Are you familiar with felt?
Oh, yes,
so
I am.
The sort of deedle guitar lines of early felt and not so much the sort of roller rink organ shit of late felt. I like felt. But you know how basically every AC/DC song sounds the same?
Yes.
Well, every Clientele song kind of sounds the same, but it sounds like your favorite melancholy dream over and over again. Because it is basically one dude on a Fender with a reverb pedal and nothing else. One bassist, one drummer. Maybe we have some keys for texture. And they start off as kind of like a lo-fi outfit. And then their sound gets progressively more full and lush. And then we start bringing in Middle Eastern instruments. And then we bring in like ouds and we bring in other stuff. And this is up until 2017. At that point, I have not heard Strange Geometry yet. But they put out an album and then disappear. They just stop. Until they put out a couple of singles here and there. They go back in the studio and they release a new album in 2023 called I Am Not Here Anymore. And they're basically, they're most sonically adventurous. You've got like sort of avant-garde string compositions. You've got like UK garage sub bass in places. It's still fundamentally a pop band playing pop songs. But there's like this sort of weird ornamentation and it's very sort of, it's jarring in a way because this is a band. It's like, I know what their deal is. And this kind of fits their deal still, but it's approached in a very entirely different way because they're pulling in way more stuff. And from what I understand, they were able to pull in more stuff because they finally bought a fucking computer. So, Alistair MacLean, lead singer, guitarist, songwriter, aside from being influenced by 60s guitar pop, and there's a song on their album, God Save the Clientele, which is 75% of the way to Daydream Believer by the Monkees. And
interesting. I wouldn't of things to pull from. I like that. I don't hear people pulling from the Monkees very often. I enjoy that.
They have a strings guy they bring in named Louis Philippe, who does these very lush string arrangements whenever the instrumentation calls for it. That album, God Save the Clientele, was recorded in America, so it's got it's got a couple of tracks with steel guitar on it. Nice. They pull from a bunch of different places, but at their core, this is a 3-piece rock band indebted to 60s guitar pop, psychedelia, and French surrealism in the lyrics. There's they recycle a lot of patterns in the way that you always dream about the same things. It's the rain and the ivy and the fog and the trees, and the images come back, but they're in different configurations, and it's I heard third hand. A critic wrote this in the 2000s. Forgive me that I have not sourced this, but someone called The Clientele's music. When people said that sensitive people escaped to another world, The Clientele's music sounds like the world they were escaping to. And all I really want to say is this band fucking rocks. They like Lamb Chop to You, have not put out a dud. I like all those records. And the new one's really good. It's very, very adventurous for these lads.
Nice.
And those are the two bands that I want to sort of put some shine on.
I dig it. A lot of those influences are reminding me a lot of how I listened to and loved 2 albums by the Brian Jonestown Massacre. And I decided I cannot get more into the Brian Jonestown Massacre because that feels like a whole rabbit hole that I don't have time to go down right now. But highly recommend for people who are into 60s and early 70s rock and roll. Their Satanic Majesty's Second Request. Fucking great. And
good title.
Their album Methadrone is the only, let's say it's better shoegaze than anything I heard come out of the UK in the early 90s. Then again, I'm a noted
fired.
I'm a noted not fan of Loveless by My Bloody Valentine, so
it's
fine. It's like a 7 out of 10.
Are you a My Bloody Valentine non-believer?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't
like
MBV?
Good movie.
Did you not like MBV when it came out? I remember liking that.
I liked it. I think it hasn't stuck with me at all. Like literally the only thing, if you were like, hey, what's what do you call it? My Bloody Valentine song that you can remember? The 2 ones are the guitar riff in Only Shallow. The opener. Yeah. Fucking great riff. And then what do you call it? The vocals in When You Sleep, I can kind of remember.
I like My Bloody Valentine, but every time I try to remember a My Bloody Valentine song, it's like my brain autocorrects and I just start hearing Heaven or Las Vegas by Cocteau Twins.
Speaking of bands I need to actually give a chance to.
So those are the bands that I want to give shine on. I gotta do a 4th thing. We've been talking for 90 minutes.
Fair, yes.
Okay, I'm gonna try to keep this one very small.
It'd be very funny if like we've shortened the episodes, but then the bonus episodes are like 3 hours long.
Right.
Anyways,
okay,
continue,
so
yes.
This one involves diet and exercise, so trigger warning for those things. During the pandemic, I decided, you know what? I should start running, which is a thing no one should think, but I thought it.
Well, if you're being pursued by someone, then you should think it.
I meant recreationally.
Yes.
And I kept at it for a while, and I went from I weighed 270 pounds and dropped to 230-ish over the course of a while, right? I didn't just wake up one day and say, where the fuck did the rest of me go? And then it was like, well, towards the end of it, I was like, well, this is not fun. And I thought I would think that I would feel better because I feel like I would be fitter. So there must be another way, because I felt like I felt like a lot of us, I was just melting. I was still working during the deep pandy, but I was still like, what the fuck am I going to do with myself? I can't see my friends. I can't fucking go anywhere. So what the fuck am I going to do? And then as stuff started opening up again, and it's like, I kind of I stumbled upon this thing about, I stumbled upon an article either by or about a writer named Casey Johnston, who is a weightlifter. That's kind of like her. That's kind of like, she's a writer. She wrote for Vox and what was it? The Hairpin and The Cut and a bunch of places. I think those are her credits anyway. But her main thing now anyway is oh, well, if you are a newbie to strength training, here's what I did. I was like, you know what? I've never actually given that an honest go. And so my 4th thing, which is the jockiest thing I've ever done, and I'm still doing, weightlifting.
That rules.
And the hilarious thing with that is I started small, got a gym membership, canceled the gym membership when I realized there was a gym at work I could use for free that had a squat rack and a barbell and stuff like that. And it's and literally one of the first instructions, when she goes if you want to start weightlifting, here's what you want to know. And one of the first things is you definitely have to eat more. It doesn't matter how much you think you're already eating. You have to eat more because, Casey Johnston has a history of eating disorders and all that. And this is part of her, part of her process is it's I'm doing this as part of a way to get away from that, because in order to get strong, you have to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And we're living kind of in a cultural era where, like, people, especially women, are being told, hey, you should eat 900 calories a day and be thankful for it. And I'm plugging in some numbers into a calculator to figure out how much should I eat if I want to get big and strong. And you're like, you have to eat 3,100 calories a day. It's like, I can't do that. I don't think I could, even if I tried, I couldn't do that. So what I basically just did is like, I will eat a lot. What I realized during this, it's really hard to overeat. It is really fucking hard to be like, oh shit, I've eaten too much, because it's just like a lot of my eating is instinct, and it's like eventually it's just like not hungry anymore. Because obviously if you don't have any fuel and you work out, you get sore, right? That's like, and also there's nothing to make muscle from. And the ultimate cosmic punchline is I gained every fucking ounce I lost while running, but feel 1,000,000 times better.
Imagine that.
Funny fucking thing, right? So yeah, my fourth thing is just strength training. Nice.
That rules. I didn't know you were doing that, and that's actually really awesome. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you. I think it's a notable thing. So,
I'm going to pivot from a positive thing to a bummer thing.
Oh no.
Not a bummer to have experienced, but like a bummer to it's a bummer of a piece of art.
Oh, I see.
And that is Skinamarink.
Oh, yeah. I've heard. I could see this as an Isabelle favorite.
Yeah, it for people who missed the phenomenon that was Skinamarink, and it feels like it was every fucking where for like a hot minute.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it like, because this is like a Canadian avant-garde horror film that like broke containment.
Yes, it somehow like got a wide release, which is bonkers to me. It made $2 million. It cost $15,000 to make. Made $2 million at the box office, which is wild. And the fact that this is a movie that everyone watched, like when I was finished with it, I definitely had the thought of like, how did anyone sit through this who wasn't already into experimental film? How did they not get just wildly bored out of their minds? Because I think...
Oh, many people did.
Fair. But I think more people than that really liked it. And people that I didn't expect to originally really liked it. I definitely know people who very much did not. And I can see why to a very large degree. I think that if you're not on its wavelength, if you don't like get in tune with it, it would feel interminable. Right. And like not scary and kind of tedious. The first half hour of me watching it was getting on that wavelength. Like I was like into it, and then I just kind of like was slowly getting more and more on what it was trying to do. And eventually I just started vibing with it. And it was both one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, and also one of the saddest, which is something that I don't feel a lot of people talked about in the outcome of it. Like when it was coming out, everyone was like, oh, it's one of the scariest movies ever, which is true, but I wasn't prepared for how just deeply sad it was. And like the director himself has cited like Stan Brakhage, the film Wavelength, that famous experimental film, Maya Deren. So like big names in experimental film. And probably half the movie is either static shots or slow pans of ceilings and floors. There's never really a monster or anything that you see that is super scary until one jump scare that, I'll be honest, I don't love. It's one part of the movie that I was like, this doesn't fully work. And then the last moments of the movie do have, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a thing that happens and you see something that is very frightening and upsetting. But people who haven't seen it, essentially two kids wake up in their house and all the doors are gone and their parents are gone and it's perpetually nighttime. And that's it. That's really all that there is. And they will occasionally hear voices in the darkness that are calling out to them. And it does a lot of things where it takes what you would expect a movie like that to do and pointedly doesn't do it, and instead does something that's scarier that you didn't realize would be a scarier thing. There's a part, this is relatively early on, so I'm not spoiling too much here, where one of the kids goes upstairs and does she hears a voice in the darkness, goes upstairs and does see her father in the bedroom. He's sitting on his bed, and he essentially tells her to look under the bed for her mom. So she looks under the bed, and she does it twice. And both times I was expecting, there's going to be a thing that happens. You're going to see an image. It's going to be a jump scare or something like that. And it just never happens. And that is so much more unsettling that all of a sudden just like this thing you expected isn't happening. And instead a thing happens that is much creepier, let's say. And a lot of that very much works. But the thing that is the saddest part of it is it's tapping into this kind of dual feeling of fear. Like, I think I'm not the first person to say it clearly to me seems like a metaphor for abuse as well. Both like abandonment and then more violent forms of abuse. Because the main kind of upsetting and scary feeling I got from it was the feeling of being a kid, and wouldn't it be scary if your parents were just gone all of a sudden? And that was honestly one of my biggest fears when I was a kid. I was like terrified of that idea. It's like I'd wake up and my parents would just not be there anymore, or they would just leave me somewhere and I wouldn't ever find them again. I'd just be alone. Terrifying already to me. And then it takes in a second part, which is, what if it was just as scary when they came back? And there's a lot that I would like to say about it in like a full spoiler version of this, but I genuinely think people should go in knowing as little as possible, because a lot of things that happens, especially there's a title card that fucked me up. Highly recommend if you somehow haven't seen Skinamarink yet. Just be aware. Like I would generally say, if you're someone who is potentially triggered by, there's never images of abuse, but there's definitely both allusions to parental abandonment and then allusions to some violent actions of parents upon children. If those are things that might trigger you, I, in that case, might say possibly stay away, because it might be too much and too overwhelming. But it was a movie I could not stop thinking about for weeks after I watched it. It was, it really fucking worked for me.
All right. I have not seen Skinamarink, but I was around the discourse, and a lot of it was really kind of hung up on the formal aspects, in the sense of like you were saying, isn't it wild that we're seeing this at a fucking AMC theater or whatever? Mm-hmm. And which would make also for kind of a unique communal experience. Like, I suspect that this is the kind of movie that would work well, in the darkness of your living room, just with a television. Because, the horror is coming from inside the house, as it were. Yeah. But it's got to be a uniquely fucked up experience to have with the big, presumably sort of, not glitchy, but artifacted screen projected 30 feet high.
Yes, I will say I'm sad that I didn't get to see it in theaters, because watching it on my TV and seeing all that artifacting, and there's essentially what is essentially a VHS filter. I've seen people have issues with the fact that it's a filter, not actual VHS. I personally didn't. I thought it was well done. I thought that it was used in a way that made the image like it wouldn't have worked without that, because the image would have looked different and certain things would have been either more legible or less legible than they were with the filter on it. So I think it works, but either way, yeah, there's especially the final scene. Again, not to spoil anything, but something is in the darkness, and it's in that, right on that line where you can almost make it out, but you can't quite. And seeing that on a big screen would have honestly been amazing. And I'm a little sad I didn't get to do that, but
you know what? I mean, like, there's a long, proud tradition of low budget, vaguely, in some cases vaguely, in some cases pretty directly avant-garde, Canadian genre film, and we fucking love to see it.
Your Cube 2 hypercubes.
Exactly. But one of my abandoned pet projects was to watch all the films directed by Ernie Barbarash, who did both of those Cube sequels.
Oh God!
But when I was back when I was like really vulgar autorism pilled. Remember vulgar autorism? Remember 2011?
That's just life now. I feel like.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, so yeah. If you're, a lot of these dudes are like direct-to-video lifers. Not everyone can be Jesse B. Johnson or, I guess Jesse B. Johnson is like the one. He's the one now. Oh, there's also John Hyams is the other one.
John Hyams.
John Hyams is doing pretty good for himself. Thank you very much. I'm sad I didn't catch Sick when it was new, but I'll get to it. I'm invested in the John Hyams project.
Yeah, I need to catch up with some of his newer stuff, but yeah, it's no matter what, we will always have Universal Soldier: Day of Reckoning.
Fuck yes, I love those two movies he made. Did you see Alone?
No.
That's I think Chris Mello likes this movie as well. Good fucking thriller, awesome movie.
It kind of reminds me of oh God, what's his name? A guy that I really loved his early films and was so happy to see him make good. Mike Flanagan. I just want to let everyone know that I was on that Absentia kick before Oculus came out. So,
yeah, I mean, Mike Flanagan's another one of those projects that I keep meaning to get to.
Yeah,
and now it's like he's like 4 Netflix series deep, and it's like, I don't know, man. I really liked Hush. That's the one Mike Flanagan joined I've seen.
I haven't seen that yet. I liked Absentia. Really liked Oculus. And unfortunately, I kind of stopped there.
Apparently, Ouija 2 is really good.
Interesting. That's the kind of thing I wouldn't expect, but I also would believe, if that makes sense.
Oh, I guess while we're on this tangent, have you seen James Wan's *Malignant*?
No. I fell off the James Wan train for a while, because I did not care for the Conjuring films. Sure. And also,
*Malignant*.
Insidious was But *Malignant*, I've heard very, very good things about it, even from people who didn't adore the Conjuring movies like everyone else in the world did. So,
some people like austere, old style, like 70s horror movies, I guess.
I mean, I like those too, but I just didn't feel like they were a great example of that. I thought they were fine. They were 3 out of 5.
Well, you're also known Exorcist hater, Isabelle Arf. So.
I am. But hey, Exorcist Dominion. There's a movie. Exorcist 2.
I actually saw Exorcist 2, and I'm like,
it's a good movie.
This movie it's
interesting.
I think that it's very interesting. I don't know that it's good, but it's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's definitely not one of the worst movies ever made.
I agree. And then Dominion prequel to Exorcist. No, sorry. I'm actually thinking of Exorcist: The Beginning, which is the Rennie Harlan one.
I thought. It
was made in the same time, I believe. Yeah, because it's a retooled version of Paul Schrader's one, which I think is fine. But I think Exorcist: The Beginning is a genuinely good movie. Paul Schrader's got enough love from me. He doesn't need this. Like
right.
First Reformed was a life changer kind of movie. So hey,
great movie.
Cat People.
I really like the card counter. Cat People is the most aggressively horny movie I've ever seen.
Yes, it is like hornier than some porns I've watched. It's wild.
It is prime Natasha Kinski drenched.
And then
it is almost insultingly horny.
That reminds me, I really need to go watch his movie The Canyons. I feel like I'll love it. It feels like the kind of like Isabelle Arf like resuscitation project right there.
A contrarian classic. I think back in the bad old days of Tumblr, when JB would hold screenings on what was then called Justin.tv, which is currently Twitch.
Oh God!
We watched The Canyon. We watched The Canyons as a group. I did not like it. I didn't think it was a good movie.
I mean, how do you feel about Twixt? I feel like these later period, like lesser loved auteur films. I fucking adore Twixt.
I know you're a big late Coppola head.
Yes, very much so. One of Val Kilmer's best roles. Maybe Val Kilmer's single best role. I'll say that. Also, Alden Ehrenreich's in it. People love Alden Ehrenreich these days.
He's a pretty solid actor. My sort of auteur, like my big Francis Ford Coppola reclamation project that's going to happen. No, that movie's bad. That movie's so
The movie
odd.
is really fucking bad. I cannot get on the train for that one.
My future Coppola reclamation project movie is going to be One from the Heart. That's the one where I think it's like, I'm going to love this movie and I'm going to think everyone is out of their mind for disliking it.
That's one I genuinely want to watch so badly. I feel like I will very much enjoy it. And plus, like we're both noted Tucker the Man in His Dream fans. Love
that movie that you put me on as a Derek Core classic.
Great flick.
Yeah. I you know what's fun? I swear I'm gonna end this tangent. I watched that movie back to back with Speed Racer, and that's a great double feature.
Oh wow, Speed Racer, another great film that I feel fully gets its due now.
Yeah, everyone's on board now. Everyone's like, what's one of the great studio pictures of the 2000s? It's like, it's fucking Speed Racer. It's like no one's out here doing this stuff. My fifth and final thing.
Thank you. I realized we've been recording for 2 hours.
Yep.
Okay. Just 2 more to get through, people.
My fifth and final thing is I have put away my childish things, which is to say my Magic the Gathering collection, and pulled different childish things from the closet, which means Scrabble. I have friends who are big Magic players, and
you're talking
part of seeing them. That's right. But I've never actually played Magic against you.
Fair. You don't want to. The fun little fact about me, I have actively not played against most of my real life friends because I get wildly competitive in a way that is
Isabelle
not healthy.
Isabelle is what we call in the soft sciences a spike.
Yes. I am a hardcore spike. I will net deck anything that will get me to win. I will rules lawyer the shit out of things. It's a problem. I love playing Magic competitively, but it makes it so it's very difficult for me to play it like an FNM.
So here's the thing. I like Magic. Okay, how about this? I love my friends, but I merely like Magic.
That's fair.
I really used it as like sort of a social lubricator in the sense that like, oh, my friends already play Magic. I want to play Magic with them because it's a thing that we could do together, and you want to show interest in the interests of the people you love.
Mm-hmm.
I am not good at Magic the Gathering, and not just because I didn't play for a long time and never really put in the hours, but also from a philosophical point of view, I'm bad at Magic. I think I'm bad for Magic because my approach is more, I don't want to necessarily use all the good cards, but I want to make the bad cards good.
I mean, that's
real
saffron olive approach.
I don't know what that is.
He's a Magic content creator. He's very well known for making strange decks out of cards that don't seem like they should work and trying to make them work.
See, my brothers in arms in the YouTube Magic community are 4 dudes from Minnesota who call themselves collectively Quest for the Jank Lord. It's basically Jank Commander. You get kind of an El Cheapo commander, and the deck you build cannot contain any card worth more than 79 cents. Majestic. I love this.
Yeah, I do enjoy that we are both opposite sides of the spectrum here. Where like, I can't play Commander. It's too not competitive to me. People are too casual about it. And I would be so obsessed with making the most optimized deck I could that I can't enjoy the communal part of it anymore. But
so you would absolutely detest playing against me.
Unfortunately, probably. I'm not proud of this, people. I wish I could be more normal about Magic. It's just, I can't be. And I've taken that knowledge of myself, and I've purposefully avoided things that would cause that to be an issue, let's say.
So here's an example. I like drafting, but the format everyone plays is Commander. So I gotta make a Commander deck. And so the deck that I've been piloting forever, and this is funny because you'll find out what it is in a second, is a Boros Vehicles deck.
Oh, is that dwarf? Your commander?
Yeah, Depala Pilot
yes.
Exemplar. And it's really fun. I love vehicles. The first set that I really, really played was Kaladesh, which was the first set that introduced vehicles. And I, because I have other hobbies and places where money has to go, can't really afford a really like tooled out, tricked out deck. So I basically moneyballed my way into a Boros vehicles deck that works some of the time. And this is going to make your skin crawl. This is a commander deck that can't win on commander damage, because the best way to use it is to use my commander as a pilot. So she does not deliver damage, the vehicle does.
Oh, I'm fine with anything that makes people do less of the commander things in commander, I'm happy with. Commander is a blight upon that game. And for my specific way of playing it, saying these things in jest, everyone.
And one of my friends is like what we would call a control player, likes lockdown decks. It's like the way that I get off playing Magic is that you motherfuckers don't get to play, which,
yeah,
you know, I mean,
great.
No, it's not. It sucks ass. It's not fun.
Yeah, but then you get to play the control mirror where you both just sit across from each other for 10 turns waiting for the other person to do something. And then as soon as someone does something, it's just like counterspell, counterspell. It's great.
You're a
resource attrition. It's wonderful.
So, and like partly because I could never get good enough of this game for the juice to be worth the squeeze. Partly because my play group kind of dispersed. And this player, who will recognize themselves if they ever listen to this episode, ultimately quit Magic because, for many reasons, you know, other hobbies and this and that. But one of the things, and that kind of stuck in my craw, was that it just frustrated them that you can't optimize luck. You simply cannot optimize chance. Magic the Gathering is a game where you have to draw cards, and that's the random element.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than not play something completely optimized, they're like, this is not fun for me. And I was like, you know what? I am not crazy about, like, I love playing with my friends, but I was, so, you know that meme of, like, the little doll man, with the chess piece, wanting uppies, and then the second frame is, like, a fucking computer god patting it on the head?
Yes. I had to think for a moment to pull it out from the depths of my brain, but yes.
I consistently felt like I was that little doll man. It was like, hey, the thing that this deck is supposed to do is finally doing, and it was like, congratulations, brother. And it's like, well, I stubbornly eventually just like, I can't put the good cards in my deck because I'm not made of fucking money.
I will say that is the worst part of Magic. The secondhand market sucks.
So I decided. So my playgroup kind of dispersed. And it's just like I had way fewer chances to play Magic. And so I decided to make good on an ancient promise I made to myself. I decided to start attending the Montreal Scrabble Club, which is another game where obviously you can't optimize chance because you have to pick the letters out of the bag. But words don't cost anything. Everyone uses the same fucking word list.
You're not getting those premium, like the holographic words?
No,
old retro frame words.
Yeah, it's like I don't buy the good boosters that cost $15 a piece.
They cost way more now.
Oh fuck!
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So I started playing Scrabble, and because man, this is already past 2 hours. Back when I was in high school, and this is we'll call this a callback to when I was talking about reading a lot of nonfiction. One of my first favorite books, a book I still own, and whose cover is all wrinkly, and and a lot of the pages are yellowed and frayed, is Word Freak by a sports writer. Well, not a sports writer anymore, or currently is a sports writer named Stefan Fatsis, who used to work for the Wall Street Journal, now works at Slate. And it's about competitive Scrabble in the late 90s, and it's very Errol Morris-y. It's like, imagine if you had Errol Morris and George Plimpton write a book together. So it's basically this guy Stefan Fatsis being like, well, my last relationship ended in a complete puff of smoke. What do I do now? Well, I guess I could start getting good at Scrabble again. And it's this kind of like quixotic journey to Scrabble experthood.
I like how, like, in books I've been thinking about lately, there's either that course or you take, oh god, I can't remember his name. The guy who wrote The Game basically had the same backstory, but he decided to get into pickup artists.
Neil Strauss?
Yes, Neil Strauss, thank you.
What's his douche name? Mystery.
No, Mystery's a different man. Mystery's
a different dude.
Yeah, Mystery is the one who wears a top hat. And apparently like over 6 feet tall anyways, and he always wears like high platforms to the club to be like the tallest person there.
Like 6'8" or whatever.
Yeah. And is apparently very unstable from what I'm aware of in that book. But while you continue, sorry, I'm going to look up the what his name was in the pickup community.
So this is like 2002 or something. I have that book, and I still have that very same copy staring at me in the face. I've always been interested in word games and like words and writing generally. That is kind of my bag. But it was only in July where it was like, okay, well, I've been in a city with a big Anglophone population. There's definitely a Scrabble club here, and there is. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go. I know how to play this game. I don't know how to play this game. It's like the idea of like, do you play chess? It's like, I know how the pieces move, but I don't know how to play chess.
Yes.
And for Scrabble, it's like, well, I know some words. I know that, CAT spells cat, but I don't know, like, I don't know ball like these old Jewish ladies at the rec center. Because the thing you keep reading about people who are new to Scrabble is like, I got my clock cleaned by a 74-year-old mother of 5. And not only that, but turns out that Montreal, the city I call home, is having a bit of a moment in terms of competitive Scrabble. The last 2 North American champions I say hello to every week because they play at the club.
Nice.
But I'm not playing against them. I'm still a scrub. And it's like, I gotta like learn, not only do I have to learn strategy because it is a board game, you have to, I talked to one of my friends, who I hadn't seen in a while about what I've been up to lately. He says, I've been getting into Scrabble. And he says, I used to think that Scrabble was just kind of a fun board game that you play with your family, but it turns out it is a cutthroat blood sport where you have to wrestle over control of a board. And, it is that. So it's learning the strategy, it's learning the words, and it's learning all the 2-letter words, it's learning all the 3-letter words, it's learning the bullshit Scrabble words. And you can only get better by playing. And I've been playing for a few months. I think I'm okay. I'm never going to be a world champion. I think it can be okay. I think I can be all right. And I'm playing in my first actual, for real, for ratings points on the official fucking website tournament on Sunday. Then next month I'm going to Gananoque in Ontario to play in another tournament. I want to see this through because I've been threatening to do this to myself for most of my adult life. And now I'm making good on it. So the final thing was trading in my Magic cards for bespoke tournament legal Scrabble tiles.
I love that. This is maybe a strange question. Probably not. It probably comes up a decent amount. So you're in Montreal, which is in Quebec. Is there a separate like French or Quebecois Scrabble scene?
I suspect that there is, but the French don't really play the same way. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
There's the French tournament Scrabble. The main way that you play it is what they call duplicate Scrabble, which is you play in like a bingo hall, and everyone has the same tiles. And your final score is a percentage of the perfect score found by the other players. Like wow. The best move is tallied every turn. And your final score is the percentage of your score against that top score.
That is an insane way to play that game.
Yeah, I mean, they have like normal Scrabble, which they call like head-to-head Scrabble or classic Scrabble or something like that. But the main form of tournament Scrabble in the Francophonie is duplicate Scrabble.
Interesting.
It's weird, man. But yeah, like, so I gotta go to the club and get my clock cleaned by people who have been playing this game longer than I've been alive. And like literally, so today we're recording this on a Thursday, so I was at Scrabble Club yesterday, and it is kind of crazy how, like, my opponent, who is, like, sort of, some people who are, like, very crabby, but they're very cheery about it.
Yes.
So, like, this person, like, who's, like, way better at Scrabble than I am, not only proceeds to beat me, but beats me almost as an afterthought. Like, she's evidently very tired and, like, laying my head down on the desk tired, but just systematically dismantles me. And it's like, no banter, no bullshit, just business. And it's like, I lost by 175 points, and she wasn't even fucking trying. Or it didn't seem like she was trying. I think it's just you get to a point where it becomes automatic.
Yeah.
Like, she's not an expert, but she is, like, a solid intermediate player, which is better than what I am.
I mean, you talking about that reminds me of how I got into various puzzle cubes over the past, like, year, or, like, half a year-ish. I'm never going to be a speed cuber, but
I see. Okay.
I very much enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. It's as someone with brain problems, it's a great stim toy because once you get good enough at it, it's the same thing where you don't have to think about it. Your hands just do the thing. Like, I could not, if I grabbed a cube right now and tried to show you step by step how to solve it, I don't think I could anymore. But if I just do it, it's easy, if that makes sense.
No, I get it.
Yeah. But I've been loving that. So, hey, we're both getting into things manufactured by Hasbro.
That's right. I would go so far as to say things being ruined by Hasbro.
Fair. I guess we're on to last one for me.
That's right.
Okay. We probably should have gone with 3 now that I'm thinking about it. Just 3 things, but hey, we're already here. So
that's right.
One of the other parts about moving in with partners is that I play way more video games than I have in literally years because it's way more fun in a lot of circumstances to play a game with other people around. Even if they're like not playing as well, just like they're like either playing on their own Switch or like reading or just hanging out. It's fun to be around people instead of just sitting on my own and doing things. And it also helps me that my instinct for a long time playing games is they were just, I would have podcasts on in the background and turn the volume of the TV just off and just use it as like a thing to do with my hands. Like I would go into Skyrim and collect things and level up just because the numbers would go up and that'd be satisfying. But I hadn't played any new games probably for like almost 2 years. And this is from someone with like, I own like 10 consoles. I like video games quite a bit. It fell out as part of my life, but now it's come back with a vengeance. I've played a lot of really good stuff lately. I'm only going to narrow it down to just one honorable mention and one actual one. Honorable mention, really quick, is Darkwood, which is a top-down survival horror game where essentially there's 2 phases of the game. There's a day-night cycle. During the day, you go out and try to avoid getting killed by things in the forest as you grab resources like wood and nails and various other things, rags to make bandages with, all that. And then you go back home, you board up all the windows of your house and all the doors, and you try to make it through the nighttime without dying. And it's both this very satisfying loop, like it has the same kind of feeling that Stardew Valley does to me, where like each day I know exactly what I'm doing, and it's just a very satisfying pattern to get into. It has a great atmosphere. It's very like it's Eastern European, like former Soviet bloc kind of vibe. And I believe the developer is also from the Eastern Soviet bloc. Western Soviet bloc. Eastern Europe is what I was thinking of. And it's got a very great vibe. Has a very satisfying loop. And those nighttime ones when I am stacking up furniture outside my bedroom door because something is banging, I can't see it. I can only hear it because the other cool thing about the game is you can only see what your field of view of your character would currently be. So even though it's top down, you can't see around you. You can only see where you're looking. So things can sneak up behind you very easily. And if something's outside of your walls or there's something breaking up your line of sight, you can't see it. So you will just hear like things outside your windows, things outside your doors, things hitting your windows and doors, trying to get in. And then I would just hear like a snap of one of my traps outside go off and know that something's in there. I don't know what it is. Are they going to get out? Are they going to come and be more aggressive afterwards? And managing that, trying to keep my house secure enough without wasting too many resources to do that. And just the stress of hearing all those sounds outside and waiting for something to break through, like piling furniture in front of doors so nothing can get through, and then hearing it be pushed aside anyways. It's one of the scariest games I've ever played. It's amazing. Great sound design too. Highly recommend for people who are into horror style games like that.
What was the name again?
Darkwood.
Darkwood.
Yeah. But the real thing that I needed to talk about with someone, it's Disco Elysium, which is...
I've had this game recommended to me a lot.
Holy shit. So, you know how most video games have terrible writing?
Yes, I'm familiar.
What if you had a video game with writing good enough that if it wasn't in a video game, I'd still think it was excellent? That's actually a pretty high bar. And
that sounds really good.
Yeah, it's both hilarious, like it's genuine, like laugh out loud funny at points. I like playing it with my partners around a lot because the voice acting is really good as well. And the voice acting delivers the lines in ways that are both very touching when it needs to be and very fucking funny when it needs to be as well. Kim Kitsuragi, who's the secondary kind of character, he's your cop buddy. You're a cop in the game and like your partner. He's amazing. There's a reason why everyone loves Kim. He's fucking great. The world is this really fascinating, like non-obnoxiously steampunk, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Like it's not like overbearing with like, oh, there's gears everywhere. Everything's bronze. It's more just like the technology's a little older, but it's definitely the future. And there's things that the technology can do that you can't do with modern technology, but it's clunky. It's like vacuum tubes and a lot of things like that. It's a very appealing world to be in. And also happens to be
a life worth living is a life that has a little friction.
Yeah, very much. And it has a lot of things to say about politics in ways that are genuinely insightful and interesting, and in ways that are not didactic, if that makes sense. Like it very clearly has a point of view. It's not like hey, we're just asking questions. It's not that kind of game. It has answers that it believes in, but it doesn't force you to choose those answers either. And it makes the other answers that aren't that answer, which, for the record, so if people don't know, I think it was during the Game Awards when they won the award for Best Writing, the developers thanked Karl Marx. So it's pretty obvious where they're coming from. But I will say one of my favorite characters in the game is this older, like, well-off lady who is a neoliberal. And she calls herself a liberal. She discusses essentially selling out some of the communists during the revolution that failed. But she's written so well that you can hear a sadness in how she talks about it, that she wishes she hadn't, and that in her brain, she wishes there had been another way, but there wasn't. And that's the attitude of a lot of characters is we wish there was something different, but there isn't. And a lot of the game is finding that there is. There are different ways to do things. There are chances. There are things that are worth risking. And her
That's
character,
a really interesting character that in the wrong hands could be, bad. But I think that's like a really interesting perspective to have in this kind of game with that kind of writing. Because that's not a character a lot of people even bother having in the first place.
Yeah, no. It's the kind of thing that if you, like you're saying, like in the wrong hands, I think it could come across in ways that are very centrist or non-committal, or will treat her middle ground way as the inherently good way, or that would do the opposite and just treat her as a pure villain. And I think that the way it writes her is there's a lot of depth there, while it still recognizes that she did the wrong thing. Like she shouldn't have done what she did, but at the same time, you see where she's coming from. You see why she did it, and you see why she thinks that she didn't have another option, and that she's not proud of it. She's upset about having done it, but she's also not hiding from it at the same time. Fascinating character. I fucking love her. It'll do that super well. The dialogue system, which it's almost all just talking as a game. There's essentially skilled dialogue checks where you have a series of stats, I guess would be the way to say it, but it's like stats like Inland Empire, which is your ability to kind of like tune into the vibes of the city. And if you have a high one of those, like you'll be able to talk to like conspiracy theorists better because you'll like understand them more. Or like if you have a high, oh God, I forgot what it's called. There's a stat that's specifically for like how many drugs you do and how well you interact with those. And that allows you to talk to certain people in different ways and allows you to take actions that you otherwise couldn't. It's both very good about how it integrates those. It feels very natural. And I am so excited to do a second playthrough with completely different focuses, because I focus mostly on the like Inland Empire is actually my highest skill. I fucking love Inland Empire. It's one of the coolest skills I've seen in the game. The thing it shows you and tells you are one of those situations where it's never plot directly important, but it's incredibly important to know and will help you do things later because you had thought about certain things in certain ways. Like your thought process itself is the game, which is just amazing. And I've seen very few like dud paths or dud answers where it's like, oh, that doesn't really work or that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's the amount of writing they would have had to do for this game is kind of wild to me, to make it as consistent and well realized as it is, where every single thing, and I think there's like 20 total characteristics you can focus on. And you can also internalize certain beliefs, and those beliefs will give you bonuses and negative points to other characteristics, like both bonuses and positives and negatives, and they'll unlock additional dialogue options. Like I have a trait on my character that I went through the game, that I'm going through the game with still. I'm not 100% done with it. It's a long game, and I've been going very slowly trying to do everything in it. But my character has an inexplicable feminist agenda as one of his traits, and it allows you to think about certain dialogue options in different ways and to address like issues of gender in a way that you couldn't otherwise. It's super cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's wild. The amount of options you have for it, and just the way the dialogue system works, it never shuts anything. Or that's actually not the right way to say it. It does shut things off from you. There's certain things that if you didn't talk to the right person at the right time, or you have this one stat too low, you roll for you roll 2 die to whether or not you're gonna do well, and it's like a D&D kind of speech success roll. And there's some that you basically can't win if you're not if your brain isn't a certain way, more or less, if you wouldn't think of things that involve that. And I like that the game is hard locking me out of those things. I really like that I can't see everything. It makes it feel so much more like I'm building a specific person instead of like some of like the Bethesda RPGs. By the end of it, you can pretty much do everything. And that's very fun from like I'm just playing this game to watch the numbers go up perspective. I can enjoy that quite a bit, but I never feel like I'm a character. I just feel like I'm a person who is doing things in the environment. Like I feel myself as a player. Whereas the fact that Disco Elysium hard gates certain things off from you if you don't play it in certain ways, and you can never see everything in one playthrough. I probably even not even seen half the things in my playthrough. Is great. I feel very distinctive, and it makes me think when I'm answering dialogue, how would my version of Harry answer this? Like, how would I do that? Which makes me feel like an actual D&D game, like I'm actually role playing, which is just super neat. And yeah, like I said, super well written, emotionally involving, politically fascinating, well written, funny as hell. Highly, highly, highly recommend. Everyone else that said it is right. It's one of the best games I've ever played, hands down.
Well, I will add you to the list of people who are giving this game Hasanas, and also recommendations to me. I don't play a ton of video games, honestly. A little Animal Crossing. Some like this is one of the most old man things about me is that probably the game on my phone that I play the most is like, it's probably either Yahtzee or backgammon. I
mean, the game I play most on my phone is there's a version of Sudoku where they, in addition to regular Sudoku rules, there will be little like dotted boxes, like somewhat randomly positioned that the numbers in there have to make a total, but you can't repeat any numbers in there. It's called the Killer Sudoku. And the one I like is when it starts you with 0 things filled in. You have to just work backwards from the possibilities there. It's great. And then the thing that I have played obsessively all the way through twice now is a game called I Love Hue, like Hue. That's just, it'll show you a gradient broken into individual like shapes, like all put together, and then mix up the gradient and make you put the gradient back together. And it is...
That sounds like a nightmare for a colorblind person.
Fair. That makes sense. I'm not colorblind, luckily. And it is so satisfying. It has the same feeling I get from eating a pomegranate, where like the tactile sensation of it and the doing something very simple in an ordered way and accomplishing a goal at the end of it. It makes me feel like I am an ape in an observation chamber doing a puzzle for the benefit of a group of scientists, but in like a positive way. We're like, oh, hooray, I did it. I sorted the colors properly. I get a banana now. Good for me.
Oh, I play cribbage a lot on my phone too.
You are sliding gracefully into middle age.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm looking down the barrel at 40. I might as well lean in.
Hey, sometimes a pirate looks at 40. That's a song by Jimmy Buffett. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Jimmy Buffett.
Not actually. I have no opinions about Jimmy Buffett. I've heard like 2 songs of his. I thought they were like, eh. My parents used to know a couple of Parrot Heads. They were very nice. Haven't heard from them for a very long time. They went to our church. I remember I went to their house one time for a party. They were always very nice to me. I don't have any further opinions on them or on Jimmy Buffett.
I think Jimmy Buffett, I don't really have a take on the music either, but he seemed like a solid dude. Video games. I am what they call a filthy casual. Honestly, the games that I play the most are like Animal Crossing. I've put a lot of hours into something called Retro Bowl, which is like sort of a retro-styled American football game. I like to play, there is a blackjack game on the Nintendo store that I paid like $4 for. That's modeled after Street Fighter 2 that I put some time in.
That's cool.
But yeah, I mean, Steph actually plays more video games. She's like, she likes the Mario series of platformers.
I've heard of this Mario.
We've played some Overcooked 2 to kill some time.
God, that game stresses me out too much.
But yeah, a lot of my, I don't play a ton of video games. I've got like old man taste in video games. Like, like as one final tangent, I'm going to try to pull up my Steam wishlist. I can tell you right now though, that the vast majority of my Steam wishlist is the Jackbox Party Pack.
Fair. They're fun.
Which put in a lot of good work during the pandemic.
Yeah. We have played multiple times when we're with our friends. It's a very good, like, we don't have anything else to do. Like, this is short, quick, and pretty much everyone has a good time.
Yeah, they have basically perfected local multiplayer in that way.
Yes.
But I have, like, and I don't mean filthy casual, just like, easy mode. Bleh. It's like literally very low stakes, very slow, usually very short games. I like puzzle games. I like words. I like games that have kind of like a word component. I like games that are. I believe that the nomenclature that is being used is cozy games. I believe is the nomenclature. That's generally what I gravitate towards.
I can dig it. I besides the fact that I played the Souls games, I also don't really like stressful games. I mean, I also play horror games a lot. I guess I'm not like a gamer in the fact that like I prefer shorter games for the most part. I like when games are simple. I actually played last night a game called Iron Lung. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
If you want to be stressed out, but not by the gameplay itself, but just by the atmosphere. Essentially, very short version is you are in a future where all of the stars have gone out, and everyone who is on a planet vanished, and the only people that are left alive in the in space or in the universe are people who were on spaceships when the quote-unquote silent rapture happened. And you are a convict who is being put into a submersible in a sea of blood on a random moon to take photos. And the idea is that when you're done, you will get to go home, or not to go home, but to like not be a convict anymore. Essentially, your sentence will be commuted. And because it's not made for the depths you're going to go to, they weld the front window shut with extra metal and just tell you to get going. So the only things you can do are there's essentially a compass, which will tell you your relative direction. And there's a XY coordinate that will tell you where you're at on the map. But you can't see except for taking pictures of the outside, which is a very slow black and white grainy camera. And you just have to direct yourself essentially blind through a series of like caverns, taking pictures of things that grow increasingly stressful as you go. At first it starts out just looking like vegetation almost, and then you start seeing what look like buildings, what look like might be people. And then people should play it themselves. I kind of knew the like big scary moment, and it still worked for me, so I'm just going to say it anyways. Is eventually you see in your map you should be in clear waters, but there's the radar is beeping like there's something close to you. So I rushed to the back to take a picture, and just a giant eyeball came up in the frame.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was fucking terrible. Like I gasped, even though I knew it was basically going to happen. Still, and then the ending also made me like scream a little bit. Very good jump scare at the end, let's say. But it only took me about an hour to finish. I like games like that. I played a PS1 throwback adventure game called Fatum Batula, which has 9 different endings, and it only took me like an hour and a half to do the whole thing. Very fun game. It's very strange. Very much enjoyed it.
Okay, I have logged into my Steam, and I'm just gonna... This is very indulgent. I'm sorry if you're still listening. It's past the 2.5 hour mark.
Yeah, I also told Bree I was going to be done soon a half hour ago.
So yeah, now I'm just listing off a bunch of video games I do not own. So here we go. This is the kind of stuff that I'm into provisionally. The Stanley Parable, Kentucky Route Zero, Card City Nights 2.
I will say those first 2 games, 2 of the best games you'll ever play. Kentucky Route Zero especially. Okay. Kentucky Route Zero is the Great American Novel, but in game form. But better than that.
Video Ball, Mini Metro, Night in the Woods, Everything, Return of the Obra Dinn, Coffee Talk, Superliminal, Perfect Tides, Assemble with Care, Pentiment, Stray, The Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood, Viewfinder, The Solitaire Conspiracy, Dorfromantic, Super Mega Baseball 4, Storyteller, The Jackbox Party Pack 9, AEW Fight Forever.
I did not know there was an AEW game.
Me neither.
I should check that out.
Up until I put it on this list. Indoor Kickball, the Jackbox Party Pack 10, Balatro, and Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers.
I mean, I've played a lot of those, and they're damn good. Coffee Talk is a very fun game. Very cute.
This is like a wish list, not only because I don't have them, but because I wish to have the time to play any of them.
Yeah, that's fair. I've really wanted to play. I've had a copy of Death Stranding since the week it came out. I have not played it yet because every time I want to start playing, I'm like, fuck, that's like fucking 50 hours that I'm gonna have to sink into that, and I don't want to right now. But it's a game with a lot of walking, and I like games where you walk around and do not much in sad, rainy areas. One of my favorite genres.
Kojima the Legend in the Criterion Closet like a month ago.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun. I have a whole letterbox list where I collected a bunch of stuff that he said is like inspirations or favorite movies. I think it's an interesting list.
God, I enjoy Kojima conceptually. I enjoy like some of his games a little bit, and some of them not at all. But I'm glad he's around. I don't want him to ever go away because he is such a positive thing to have in the gaming space, let's say.
My experience with the interactive works of Hideo Kojima is playing the first Metal Gear Solid in my neighbor's house in like 1990s whatever, and nothing else. I'm just really interested in him as a processor of influence.
Yeah, fair.
Like how he just devours all his stuff that he likes, and how that weirdly gets transmogrified into whatever the fuck Metal Gear Solid is.
I will say, I don't know if there's an easy way to play it anymore. Unfortunately, yeah, it doesn't look like they've had a re-release yet. But if you can get a hold of a way to play Snatcher, the video game he made that's basically just Blade Runner, I very much recommend it. It's very fun.
And I think that's it.
Yes.
2 hours and 40 minutes after we started the recording, we have come to the end of our things that we liked and that we did and that we experienced during our long time away. But what is 2.5 hours of two people talking about stuff when we were away for 25 months?
I feel like if we would never do this because we're never going to be successful enough to make it worthwhile. If we ever did a Patreon, this would be the bonus episodes. Just Derek and Isabelle talk about shit. That's
right. Like, we just basically had a conversation.
Yes.
That we recorded. Which is not even what our podcast is, because we talk about movies. This is just literally us sharing things that we did over the last 25 months. Because if I want to, like, not just pull the curtain back, but completely yank it off of the curtain rod, we didn't talk all that much over the 25 months where we didn't do the pod. Not because we don't like each other, not because we're not friends, but lives.
I'm not really a texter anyways. Like, I can't think of anyone who I text regularly besides Jen, who I've known for over a decade at this point, and that's really only because, like, it's such a habit by now. But, like, even my partners, like, they will send me messages and I'll respond to them, but I almost never message first just because I'm like, if I'll see you in real life, or I just forget about it, or someone sends me a long message, I'm like, I need to reply to that, and I get so stressed out about having to respond to every single thing that I never do it. So it's hard to keep up with people in this day and age, even though ironically it should be easier.
One last tangent, I promise. Okay. This is the last thing. I've really been giving serious consideration to starting, like, for real, actually doing correspondence with people. Because I feel like I feel like a letter would be worth its weight in gold to people that I care about.
Yeah. I mean, I have a postcard you sent me.
Yeah, I mean, I keep starting and failing. I like the postcard. I really think that I should get into the letter writing business, because I don't know. Maybe it's like nostalgia, or like sort of romanticizing something that's like romanticizing something tangible. But I feel like, and this is completely outside the bounds of this fucking podcast, but that I am in near constant connection with everyone I know. And this goes down to people I know, like, as acquaintances whose real names I don't even know. At any given point, I could get a hold of any of them, and yet I don't. The only person I talk to regularly is, the only person I text with regularly is Steph, and I live with Steph. And a lot of it is like social media, and it's like just, I don't think we were meant to have A, access to everyone we know at all times, and B, have the thought feed of everyone we know accessible in real time. There is a limit at which you can process that stuff, and so you just don't.
Yeah.
You just don't take in the input. And also, it greatly it weirdly, in a way, emotionally disincentivizes you from doing kind of the output, because the output gets lost in the morass, because you are one of the hundreds of people that anyone else that you know has access to at any one point. But my thing is that we still read letters that are hundreds of years old from one person to another.
I gotta know about James Joyce's fart fetish somehow.
That's right. We still listen to fucking Beethoven, and we still are hip to, like, shit that was written like thousands of years ago. I think that if I had a friend, I do have many friends, not to brag, and they just got a letter in the mail one day, and I wrote to them like once a month, that would be like, yeah, I can text you, but like, I don't know. Maybe this is like a kind of like weird emotional fetishization of the written word or of a letter of like a thing. But I can't shake this thing that like, I feel like it like builds or strengthens a connection more because it is a single use channel. The life worth living has a little friction.
I mean, I also think that like, from my point of view, the nice thing about that is I like being able to instantly communicate with people. But the problem with being able to instantly communicate with people is even when it's not stated, there can develop an expectation that you do respond to things quickly. And I find that so fucking stressful. Like I have been talking to people on Tinder and having a good conversation, and then I take like a day to respond. And either they never respond
because... take 6 hours to respond because you were taking a nap.
Yes, or I was at work or something like that. And I take like a full day to respond. Either they never respond because they're like, oh, it was a day. Now it's like, there's no reason to respond again. Or they will respond within 5 minutes of me sending that. And I'm like, oh boy, that's stressful. I don't want you to have to respond that quickly. Like, can't you purposefully delay yourself by a few hours to make me feel less bad about how long this took me? But yeah, whereas if you get a letter in the mail, it's like, oh, they're not expecting me to respond to this in like by tonight. I can think about it. I can have time to sit with things, and on my own schedule, do that. It's less stressful to do things when there's not an expectation they be done immediately.
Yo, and even if you got the letter and immediately jotted something down, that other person would have to wait, like, depending on where they live, a few days.
Yeah.
At least. It's like, I hate to be old man yells at cloud about this, but shit needs to slow fucking down.
I mean, I whenever I hear someone in public playing TikToks on the speaker of their phone around other people without any consideration of like who's there, or like the fact that they're around a bunch of people who maybe don't want to hear that. If you're in like a mall, I have people that just in my store where I had someone the other day come in with like a bag that was also a speaker and playing music of their own loudly through that speaker over the music we were already playing in the store, just to everyone else in the store, just piping it out there. And like, if you were my friend and we were at home and you were like, hey, let's listen to this music, that's fine. But if you were a random stranger and were like, I'm going to force you to hear this thing that I'm enjoying, it's bad, Derek. I think just in general, TikTok's bad for the world. I'm very happy to have it
TikTok
filtered
for like a hot second.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have it filtered through my girlfriend. She filters all the good stuff, so I get to see the things that are worthwhile and get to pretend it doesn't exist the rest of the time.
Yeah, Steph does that for me. I was on there for a second because I got really bored, I guess. And two things. One, it 100% absolutely shreds your attention span.
Yes.
And two, the level to which the algorithm merely serves up what you want to see based on shit you've already seen is frightening. If you stop and look at something for like a second too long, TikTok's gonna be like, oh, you want to fucking see people who sniff shoes. It's like, no, I don't. I was just curious as to what this was. I get baited into watching a thing the whole way through, and TikTok is like, you like this? It's like, no, I don't. I was just curious.
It's like a robot version of a grandmother who heard you liked ducks when you were 5 and now gets you duck presents for the rest of your life. Though, I mean, everyone loves ducks for the rest of their life, so it's a bad comparison, but...
Sometimes it holds up a mirror and I don't like what I see. And then I go, and then I leave.
God. I think we need to...
on that cheerful note,
to wrap this up, because howdy, it is almost
now we're just
3
talking.
hours.
This isn't a podcast. Because now we're just talking. Now we're just having a conversation. This has nothing to do with us. It's like, oh, like we're just getting back into the action. It's like, no, right now we're just having a conversation that we would normally have and foistering it upon the unsuspecting public.
The adoring public.
That being said, the adoring.
The yes, hogs will eat this slop up.
We love our fans, and our fans hopefully love us.
I like pigs. That's calling you hogs is a positive sentiment. I love our hogs.
I like pigs.
You're my favorite hogs audience. Except for
I feel like this is
Gordy. Is that the pig that ran for president? No, that's not the movie.
Gordy, the pig that ran for president.
Gordy pig. Hold on, I'm googling this because it's something about politics and Gordy. The pig. Okay, we figured it out. He experiences the lives of others who are part of the film's side plots, including traveling country music singers, a lonely boy whose mother Jessica is engaged to a sinister businessman. Gordy changes the lives of people because he can understand them, that kind of thing. I could have sworn there was something involving politics.
What the fuck is this?
It's the end of the movie. Video. Podcast? There we go.
It definitely is a podcast. Oh, man. All right. So, I'm not a hard person to find. DerekGodeye.com. Everything worth looking at is there. Isabelle is holding it down old school on Tumblr.
Don't look for my Tumblr. My Tumblr is secret for just me and my 2,000 followers. If you can somehow find me on Tumblr, go for it. But otherwise, I'm just on x.biz.
Isabelle's around.
And Bluesky as Lily's Without on both of those. And just remember that Gordy, roll over Beethoven, see a Simba, this is the year of the pig. That's a review I'm seeing on the poster for Gordy.
That's a reference to the is it Chuck Berry that did Roll Over Beethoven?
Yes, I believe so.
Which was covered by the Electric Light Orchestra, baby. Let's go.
Man. Chuck Berry sure made some good music and then watched way too many people pee.
Yep. Across state lines for immoral purposes. We were almost done. Isabelle is in the places she had mentioned. We promise that the normal episodes will be just that, normal.
Yes, we already have at least one normal episode recorded. It's like just over an hour. We're getting back to regular lengths.
Yeah. This is anomalous. I don't know what this became, but this is anomalous. And unless we actually legitimately hit the 3-hour mark, because we just eclipsed 250. I'm going to invite you to say your name so we can fucking end this.
My name is Isabelle Arf.
And my name is Derek Godeye. Have movies, be jolly, and apologies for this runtime.
Have movies, be jolly. Good night, everyone in the world.
Good night.